Your laughing is getting too loud. It's distracting me from the beautiful music. Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here on another sunny day. It is 2026, and we've got wrestling talk for you. We may focus on the history aspect, because the modern stuff is just not delivering. I'm your host, the great Brian Last, and here he is, the star of the show, the leader of the cult of Cornette, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Yeah, now you try to butter me up. First of all, as far as bringing home the bacon or carrying the mail or delivering or handing over or your money or your life or whatever analogy you just made there about how the modern stuff, it just ain't getting it. Ain't getting it, Slick. But that theme, Brian, just sounded like was that the theme song to, or the backing music of a video of a cat chasing a rat through a maze? It was all over the place. You just lost your mind there.
You know, for once you're right. I didn't have it today.
As opposed to the days when you do, what do you have
where it makes millions of people happy all over the world.
Yeah, when you quit. As Mama Cornette used to say, yeah, why don't you go bang your head against a tree because it'll feel good when you stop.
This is the sound of the future. Maybe not today, but most other weeks. Good. Most other weeks.
Oh, you've taken away my will to live then, if that's the sound of the future.
Stop it. It's going to be a good future, a bright future.
And chef of the future, Kenneth Corey Apple. For all of the classic television folks out there, you sent me an article here the other day. Let's start with some happy talk. Let's start with there's so much misery and just misery in the world. Let's start with some happy things, some exciting things, and something that makes me think of my dear Mama Cornette, all at the same time. You sent me an article, and I'm trying to figure out what thing I got to click on without hanging up on you to pull it up. The other day, you stooge, you sent me an article because we just talked about the Selling Superman mini-series, documentary series that was on the streaming folks, and how that they got, like, what was it? Was it $9 million for the Superman #1 that they auctioned off from this lunatic in Michigan's collection where he had accumulated 300,000 comic books, and it was a dark family secret and everything. Well, I shouldn't say he was a lunatic. He was a very penurious lunatic. He compiled a massively multi-million-dollar collection.
I don't know if those are the same collections. I think the Superman we heard about a few weeks back that was sold is separate because that was 9.0.
Yeah, no.
The one they had was 7.0, yeah.
No, that's what they didn't have an action one here. See, you sent me the article on the action one. I said, we just talked about the Superman one. See, you're cross-pollinating my conversation already.
I just don't have it
today. You
just
don't have it today, Brian.
I'm so sorry.
God damn it. I remember when you had it, and then you lost it. That is mine and Stacy's favorite sound effect. We'll do that, teacher. When something is disappointing in any kind of way, or a letdown, we'll just turn to each other and go, wah, 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 wah. The point is, we had just talked recently about this Superman #1 from the guy in Michigan. They sold it at auction for $9 million. And then you sent me this article, and the Action Comics #1 that folks may remember, it made the news when it was recovered a few years ago because it had been stolen like 20 years ago or more from Nicolas Cage's home. He was a big comic book collector, and then he got in a lot of financial trouble. I thought, oh yeah, wink, wink. It got stolen from his home. He probably had some kind of tax issue going on, but they found it in a storage unit somewhere in California. Well, one of those, like a real life storage war things, or what is it that where they bid on the storage unit, storage wars?
Yeah, I think that is it. Yeah.
So if you knew you had an action number one, whether it was stolen or not, in a storage unit, unless you fell in the ocean when you keep paying the bill, nevertheless, they found it in this thing and returned it to Nicolas Cage, and then he sold it for whatever the fuck, years ago. But it's the same one. And now the deal that was done through Metropolis Collectibles, it was a private deal, $15 million for Action Comics number one. There's 100 copies. They keep using the term 100 copies are known to exist. 100 copies have been graded and slabbed by the CGC or GGC or GG Allen, whoever is doing the grading. I'm sure there's probably still some collector that got it one in the 70s or 80s or whatever. We're going to tell a story here in a second. Has probably never wanted to do that because he's like you and me and he just got his shit put away. But there's not many. But this is apparently the best one, a 9.0. And goddamn, it looks beautiful. But $15 million, Brian.
Yeah. Was that a question, Jim?
Yes. That was a declarative statement meant for you then to come clean. Was it you? Was it you all along?
It was not me. No. If I had $1 billion, I would be okay with spending that amount of money for multiple comics. But, like I said before, it's the reason I never really got into buying the original books. And I just go for collections where I get the stories. It got too expensive too quickly. When I was collecting in the early 90s,
yeah,
it was already expensive.
Back in the old days. Yeah, back in the old days. Well, here, I got to bring some people up to date, and then I have something I want to spring on you here. But many people know the story, and you've heard the story because you've been around me for a long time. But for the young folks out there, it's been a while since I told it. So just to set everybody up to where I'm going next, Mama Cornette, and I know a lot of people say, oh, great God, he must have been a spoiled, rotten child. She probably got him everything, and he had fucking chocolate fondue fountains for breakfast or whatever the fuck. She was both generous and cheap at the same time. My mother would not spend money willy-nilly without some thought in any appreciable amount. And like when I got my first car, it wasn't like, oh, Jimmy, go down and pick you a sports car. You got a 5-year-old Pontiac Firebird. And when you hit a fucking pothole, the air conditioning would turn off. But it looked fancy when we got it painted. But point being, she encouraged my comic book collecting, not just comic books, but all of the books that I have. And I was reading. My father started that, get him to read. And that paid off in making me the literate and articulate young fellow that I am today. And she encouraged the photography because I did, at some point, show some level of potential for it or whatever it is, started making money, right? So that wasn't, she would support positive things in that respect. But the one thing, Brian, that I couldn't get her to do was buy me that copy of Action Comics number one. In the catalog of a guy named Howard Rogofsky. And do you remember that name, Brian? Have we talked about this in ages and ages?
Even though I had a lot of books when I was a kid, it wasn't a name that I got to know. Actually, I knew it from wrestling before I knew it from comic books. And then it was like, oh yeah, that's the guy. But it was actually wrestling where I first found out about Howard Rogofsky.
That was the fucking thing, is that I knew it from comic books and then found out he was in wrestling. Because in 1970, 71, 72, 73, like I've said many times here on the show, there weren't comic book shops. You might find a bookstore downtown in a dingy side street that had back issue comic books. But if you really wanted to buy anything, appreciably difficult to find, you had to do it through the mail order for the Passaic Book Center and this fucking company and that fucking, and Howard Rogofsky in New York, right? And I got his catalog, and the way he did it, imagine he took like 10 pages of copy paper, but he did it in a typewriter in like almost observer size print sideways so that he could staple it in the middle and fold it over, and it was a booklet. And he didn't just have comic book back issues. He had pulp magazines or big little books or old newspaper funny pages, as they used to call them, the Sunday comics, the Color Sunday sections, anything related to paper. I mean, it was just random shit. He had amazing rare shit. And then, haven't unpacked this yet, box of 30 comics from the 50s, $25, whatever. It was all over the place. But and I got stuff from him, like back issue Silver Age Marvels, which at the time were 5 years old or whatever. But in one of them was the Action Comics #1, and it was $400. $400 for Action Comic in 1971.
Did it say anything about condition? Was that a thing back then?
Well, yes, and I'm going to tell you in a minute, but I don't even remember what condition it said. I was just enthralled. 1938 first Superman. I'm like, and of course I go to my mom, and it was 400. What is while I'm nattering on, please figure out what $400 in 1971 is today. Anyway, and it's again, 1971, and I'm 10 years old, maybe, depending on what part of the year it was. And she's like, no, we can't do that. But it's the first Superman. It's 1938. It's 33 whole years ago. It's me like now buying stuff from 1993. And so no, right? And there's two parts to the finish of this story. Number one, that's where I've told a story before, that as I started to get older, and then when I started getting the Overstreet price guide every year and seeing the appreciation, and even when I moved away, I was working for Crockett, whatever, in the New York, I would call her every time I got the new Overstreet. And when she'd say hello, I would say like $185,000. And she'd know what I was talking about, because when the value of the book passed the value of the house she was living in, it was especially a consternation to her, right? But the point being, years later, this is 20 years ago or whatever, but when the Fan Fest started becoming a thing, I was at a Fan Fest and there was, I can't remember where it was or whatever, but I was just so shocked because Jimmy Valiant was there, and I've known Handsome since the 70s, and we were talking, and here's Howard. Hey, Howard, how are you? And Howard was his agent, had booked him there and was helping with the autographs or whatever. And I can't even remember how the name came up, and I just remember going like, wait a minute, you can't be the Howard Rogofsky. And then I fanboyed all over him, because you had the Action Comics #1. This is incredible. And he said, oh yeah, I can't even, he said, it was like an average book, but he had it at one time and can't remember, who exactly bought it or whatever. But he gave me, I think I still had some, but he gave me a couple of his old vintage catalogs. But the point is, my worlds collided there. I was more shocked to meet Howard Rogofsky at a wrestling convention, and he was agenting or booking several of the boys at that point. I haven't seen or heard of him in ages. Hope he's well. Somebody now is going to write and say, oh, no, he's fucking dead.
I thought he died, yeah.
Well, there you go. See, poor Howard. If he'd only got that $400 from Mama Cornette, he could have afforded the medicine that would have saved his life.
That's a fall from grace. I had Action Comics #1, and now, how'd you like to book the Boogie Woogie Man to your local high school?
Oh, come on now.
Oh, mercy! $400!
Woo, mercy, baby.
Hey,
but
before you go any further, $400 in 1971?
Yes.
In 2026, it's only $3,179.
So, to put it more in perspective, before anybody really knew that comic book collecting was a thing that was going to become a thing and that these things were going to have legitimate value in the finance world, much less collecting, I was asking her to spend $3,700 on a comic book, a 30-something-year-old comic book for a 10-year-old kid. So I can see where it didn't pan out. But as I was looking at that article, Brian, I went over to the shelf over in the vault and I got the Overstreet Price Guide has come to be generally the Bible of comic book collecting. Every year when it comes out, that's what it's a phone book now, right? Have you seen them lately? They're incredible. Like thousands of pages, whatever the fuck. You can literally commit aggravated mayhem by hitting somebody with one. But I hold in my hand the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide First Edition from 1970. It went for $5, and I'd tell you how many pages that are. Oh, 225 pages.
Where'd you buy it?
I got it through the mail in 1970.
$5 seems like a lot for 1970.
Well, you've just, because it was self-published. This wasn't like this was a goddamn legitimate publication. This was, and he had the guy, the back cover was Robert Bell, the guy who first made money selling comic book bags. Before they had boards, they had bags. And they had several people, and as Howard Rogofsky, Post Office Box 1102, Linden Hill Station, Flushing, New York. Had movie and serial items for sale. He had advertising from these major dealers that sold shit mail order. And then he published this thing himself based on the prices that they were charging people in their stores. And that's how it got started.
Hey, here's a question for you. If Mama Cornette had purchased Action Comics #1 for you in 1971, A, do you think you'd still have it? And B, if you sold it before this point, when do you think you would have sold it?
If I had had something that valuable, then I am highly afraid that I would have been out of my mind enough to sell it during the Smoky Mountain Wrestling days. Because that's actually, I did sell a couple of Golden Age books and some various things that I didn't really have. Yeah, I couldn't ever put together a run of. I had that didn't go with anything else in to collect, just nice pieces on their own, but not like I'm breaking up a set of china. And I'm afraid if otherwise, I don't know. I mean, I sold the Amazing Fantasy 15 because that was a lot of money to have tied up in a book. But
what year?
Got a book.
What year did you sell it?
What was it, 2018?
Oh, that recently. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's I turned it into my front fence and various stonework and etc.
Because that's always the thing. Once you see like an article come out like this comic book has been found and sold for $1 million, at a certain point, was that like the trigger, like, oh, I should sell this? Or do you realize, well, if it's that now, in another 5 years, it'll be even more?
That's what I was going to say. And I know that the Amazing Fantasy 15 has appreciated significantly since then. And you know what? Maybe in hindsight, I would have just goddamn broke down and paid for it, but paid for the fence rather than blah, blah, blah. But if I had something of that nature, I think I would almost have to keep it as this is my get out of jail free card. No matter what else happens with the economy, the stock market, a plane crashes on my house. If the situation ever gets dire to where I am completely with no options, I've got $1 million fucking dollars. That kind of thing.
It's one of those things no one will believe you. Guy has you tied to a chair, gun to your head. All right, where's the money? I don't have the money, but in the other room,
yeah.
I have amazing. I have all these comics. They wouldn't believe you.
But would you like to know? This is what I was going to ask you a second ago. Would you like to know what the guidebook said that Action Comics #1 that just sold for $15 million was worth in 1970 in the infancy of the comic book collecting genre?
Yeah, and right before you tried to get your mom to buy that comic book, so the timing's interesting. Can you give us that one and also Detective, like the Batman, early Batman
hold
ones?
on. Yes,
yeah.
Hold on. Action Comics #1, and I've mentioned this before, that in the early days, the conditions that were listed in the guidebook were good, fine, and mint, because that was like, the standard before everybody got the point grading system, and before everybody got near mint and very fine minus and whatever the fuck. It was good, fine, mint, because it was just like, here it is. And it was a 1, 2, 3 split, if that, which is insane now when in today's market, the high grade collectibles are worth multiple times what the just really nice ones are. But Action 1, good $200, fine $250, mint $300. Like you could just find a mint fucking Action Comics #1 anyway, at that, especially after the paper drives during World War II.
And it's less than a year later, Rogowski has it for $400, so he's even over their mint price.
Yes, well, because also he's a fucking dealer. And he's going to, try to get whatever he can get. And a lot of the, a lot of the secondhand bookshops at that time hadn't caught up yet, and they knew they were worth something, but they would underprice, whereas the mail order dealers that you really had to go to get the interesting shit would overprice, so you could still get deals. Having said that, you asked about Detective Comics #27, which was the first appearance of Batman and was always the #2 book when I was collecting. And for years, it was Action 1 and Detective 27, neck and neck, because they were seen as the two most important Golden Age books. Detective Comics 27, first Batman, good $175, fine $225, mint $275.
Huh.
So they had he dropped it down $25, right? But Superman, hold on, I don't want to break.
Yeah, what about Superman
here.
1 and Batman 1?
Well, exactly. Because Superman 1 is what the selling Superman was about, and just sold for the $9 million. Superman #1, summer 1939. #1 is the first 4 action stories were reprinted. So the origin of Superman and the first 4 Superman stories. Good $150, fine $200, mint $250.
Wow.
And what you could allegedly, if you could find one, which there still is no legitimate mint copy of any of these books. Now, a 9.0 today may have passed for a mint of that point in time, but legitimately, what you could then allegedly buy for $250 55 years later is worth $9 million. And then hold on here.
Your
let me
9.0 is as good as 4.5 stars or 4.75 stars. Just as good as 5 stars.
What are we arguing about?
Yeah.
Hey, you go to a comic convention and watch somebody arguing about a fucking half a point fucking difference in condition in a golden age book between the dealer and the collector. There'd be some goddamn fisticuffs. But let's bring the Silver Age into this, because a lot of the people are familiar with the Amazing Fantasy 15 that I just mentioned here not long ago. The first Spider-Man, and Amazing Fantasy was a Marvel title that they were going to discontinue. That is Amazing Fantasy, I think, with issue 7, because I've got a few of these. It was one of their horror books, pre-superhero. Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense, Amazing Fantasy. It had transitioned to Amazing Adult Fantasy for a couple of issues, and they were going to can it. And that's when they put the first Spider-Man story in, just because, well, let's see if this fucking clicks. And that was the last Amazing Fantasy issue, was 15. And then they started Spider-Man in his own fucking book. So point being, Amazing Fantasy 15 in 1970, good $12, fine $14, and mint $16.
Wow.
And my mom got mine in 1973 for $25, and it was a fine.
Hey, 2 quick questions, and then we'll get to some wrestling stuff. And apologies to any listeners not into this, but was Action Comics #1 the most expensive comic in there? And second question is, was there anything in there for Captain Marvel, the original, not the Marvel version, but, Shazam?
Yes. And by the way, fuck anybody who doesn't like it. This is not, if you don't like money, much less just because it's comic books, but we're talking about millions of dollars, because the Amazing Fantasy 15, I think it set the record for a Silver Age book. It wasn't it $3 million or a couple $1 million for a one that was much higher grade than, anything that you would normally find here. But the point is, this collecting and the value of these things as these characters and the cognizance of them, or the magnitude of them around the world, has exploded. This shit is worth more than anything you could have bought. Think about what, Brian, tell me, I'm going to look up Captain Marvel, but tell me what you could have bought for these prices in 1970 and had the foresight that is worth more than these fucking comic books.
The only thing I could think of off the top of my head, if I'd gone back in time and bought several unopened boxes of Topps baseball cards, I may have hit big. In the late 60s, Nolan Ryan rookie card, Tom Seaver rookie card. Go back a little further, the Mickey Mantle.
Millions?
Mickey Mantle, what did it just sell for? Like $12 million?
Well, Mickey Mantle, I can believe, but you mentioned people that were alive when I was alive, so they can't be worth $1 million.
Well, the Mickey Mantle rookie card certainly is.
Yes, I got you there. And by the way, Captain Marvel, issue #1. And for a period of time in the 40s, Captain Marvel, the Shazam version, and the Marvel family, Mary Marvel and Captain Marvel Jr., the whole 9 yards, they were outselling Superman. They started issuing a new Captain Marvel issue like every 3 weeks.
They said that's why DC went after them.
Yes.
Because there were plenty of Superman imposters out there, but that was the one that was actually doing damage.
That was the one that hit. But now, no, Captain Marvel #1, good 60, fine 85, mint 110.
Huh, wow.
So almost half of what the other books we're talking about. And now, I mean, it's now a multiple $1,000 book, but no, the whole Fawcett Publications, they haven't done movies really. There was that whole interruption of decades. They're not hot. But the books that were almost as valuable at this point in time as the Golden Age DCs were EC Comics from the 50s. And I'm just going to hold on.
Yeah.
Because that's what all of the people who had grown up in the previous 20 years and now had money were buying their shit back. Well, Vault of Horror.
Yeah, those are the comics that literally changed the industry because all of a sudden no one was allowed to do anything like it ever again.
Yeah, Vault of Horror number 12 in mint was already $30. A tenth of what Action Comics number 1 was. So that would equate to, in today's scale, goddamn, I can't do math that big, like $1.5 million for a mint copy of that book. But see, that's what everybody was into at that point in time. So that was and I mean, here, hold on. Well, one more time.
Yeah, now I got a question for you too.
The poor Fantastic Four.
That's what I was going to ask you. How did Spider-Man compare to Fantastic Four and Hulk?
I'm going to say, because Fantastic Four, again, that was the Marvel comic that you wanted. If you could find a Fantastic Four number 1 in any kind of condition, yeah, number 1, good 20, fine 25, mint 30, twice as much as Amazing Fantasy 15. The number 2 was $20 in mint because that's what everybody wanted. Fantastic Four were the goddamn... They were the shit in Marvel Comics at that point in time. Spider-Man was in second place. Then maybe Hulk. The first 6 Hulks because of from 1962, because it was a very short series and very early on, they were probably the most valuable after that. And then you got into the Avengers and Thor.
Wow.
Your question you had for me.
Well, that was kind of my question.
That was it?
Just how Fantastic Four number 1 would compare to Amazing Fantasy or Hulk.
Yeah. No, the Fantastic Four would set you back now, and people would fight over those too. But no, I mean, this again, it was insane. And I'll look up one more and then we'll quit. Because
you got to look for one for me too. Just curious of any Marvel stuff or timely from the war, any of the Captain America original stuff.
Well, hold on. See that you asked if anything was Action 1 was the most valuable comic in this guidebook. But Marvel Mystery, the first issue, which had the Human Torch, the origins and the first appearances, obviously, of Human Torch, Submariner, Khazar, who didn't quite make it. Good 165, fine 200, and mint 250.
Wow, there you go.
Because that was the book you wanted if you were a Golden Age, timely, later to become Marvel collector. That's the one you wanted. And then the run with Human Torch and Submariner and the fucking 3-part battle was up still in 3 figures. Those early, all the top 10 of those early issues were $100 or more in mint. And then it would go down from there in the Submariner's individual. I had a Submariner 4 one time, I'll have you know. Looked like a kid had used it to swat flies on the back porch. But your Submariners and Captain Americas, etc., would go down from there. But that was before they knew that there was a whole controversy on, was Marvel Mystery number 1 the actual number 1? No, it was number 2 because there were the pre-printing or ash can edition that had confused the issue and blah blah blah. But that was the most valuable Marvel comic in the world at that point in time.
When you first
Marvel
saw
Mystery number 1.
When you first saw Star Trek as a kid, did you think Mr. Spock looked suspiciously similar to the Submariner?
No, because it was the other way around. Because think about this. Star Trek came on the air in 1966. I was reading Casper and fucking, Harvey comics, right? I'm
Baby Huey.
I'm a Baby Huey and a little Lotta and the Disney stuff, right? And then it was in Christmas of 67 that I went to Aunt Lola's and I was bored and they found me the box of Larry and Richard's funny books in the basement, and there was early Fantastic Four and X-Men and all Spider-Man and all these, late 50s DCs and early 60s superhero Marvels, and I just fell in love with them and paid them my weekly allowance for the box so I could bring it home, 50 cents. And the Journey into Mystery 83, I just sold in like 2019. Because it was in there as a part of the other 200 books I got for 50 fucking cents.
Hey, one last thing about the 1970 price guide. How much was X-Men #1? Because this is before giant size X-Men #1, and kind of the revitalization or made them bigger than ever, actually.
Hold on. Well, we actually haven't mentioned X-Men, and I'll tell you why in a second. I liked the early X-Men.
Yeah, me too.
But not a lot of other people did. Hold on. Well, wait a minute. Is X, Y, Z, is that still the order that it comes in?
That is, yeah.
I'm trying not to break this spine, and it's at the back, so don't laugh at me. But X-Men. Issue #1, good $4, fine $5, mint $6.
Wow.
Because think about this. Do you know when this was published, the highest number issue that they list is issue number 40. And you know what the prices on that is?
No.
Issues number 13 through 40 of X-Men. Good 35 cents. Fine.
Oh my God. Wow.
Fine 50 cents. Mint 65 cents.
Man.
You could get, as a matter of fact, well, look at this. X-Men 6 through 10. Are you familiar with the very early X-Men 6 through 10? Good 75 cents.
Wow.
Fine $1. Mint $1.25. At the time they were only 6 years old. At the time this was.
And it was almost like a dead comic. No one thought about the X-Men. They were.
No, they went by what was it? Late 60s, early 70s. I'm talking about the issue number. Issue number 60 something, 70 something, whatever. They went into reprints for ages because it just wasn't happening. But now I loved like from X-Men up till about 25 or 30 or whatever. It was, it was great, just excellent. But nobody in those days collected the poor beleaguered X-Men.
Hey, one last one. How much is Archie Comics #1?
Oh, hold on.
Because that's like a different world and a different market altogether.
Well, and here's I don't have the current. I have last year's.
I was talking about in the 1970 book.
No, listen to me. I have last year's Overstreet. I would say, but I don't have it in front of me. I would compare because I don't have any idea what it would be right now. But in this book in 1970, Archie #1, good $6, fine $8, and mint $10.
Wow.
But that, again, I bet you X-Men #1 would probably outperform Archie #1 now, even though there's 20 years difference in their ages. Kids, is there anything? Look up Archie Comics #1. Is there any way to just look that up on the Google machine and see how much they would want for that now? The poor Archie just ain't. He's not goddamn. Gotten a lot of attention in recent years. And by the way, just while I'm here, we're just nerding the fuck out, aren't we?
Apparently, Archie #1 was sold for $167,300.
Okay, so Archie's still getting some respect, but he's not up in the millions.
And actually, I don't know what. According to this, if it was near mint, it'd be worth $425,000, which is 9.4.
Ah. Well, still, you would still have had to pick your fucking spots.
You ever see those photos? Sometimes there's a kid in it. Sometimes it's literally just a newsstand from 1941. And you see every publication out there, every comic, even the magazines. And it just makes your mouth water. Just the idea that all of these were being delivered and they were just sitting there.
And rather, a mint copy for those of you comic collectors interested, a mint copy of Tales of Suspense number 39, the first appearance of Iron Man, would run you $6. I think that's going to be one of the next Marvel comics that closes in on 1 million if it hadn't already. So $6 for, there you go.
All right, well, this has been the Comics Corner. And of course, we're talking about comic book superheroes that were early heroes of Jim Cornette, but other heroes were also his friends. And on that topic, let's talk about Cornette's collectibles.
Well, that's right, because I have a book on those heroes and friends, and it is available at jimcornette.com. And now that the new year has come and the holidays have passed, me and the Featherbottom family are up to date on fulfilling all of the fulfillingness. So if you would like the first finale of your fulfillingness, you can order with impunity that your stuff will be signed, turned around, and shipped. The shit will be shipped to you promptly at jimcornette.com. And exciting things are being planned for 2000. What year is this now? 2026.
That's right.
Where we're going to have a bunch of different stuff on sale than any kind of the stuff that we've had before. Instead of doing the same stuff, now we're going to have different stuff. It's going to be very exciting. Very exciting.
At jimcornette.com.
That's the place.
Jim, let's get to some questions before we get going with a lot of other things here today. And this kind of follows up on something a lot of listeners have been asking about the last day or so, but I'll ask this question and then we'll see what this triggers. This was sent.
Is this a trigger warning for me? What's going to happen to me?
This was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Brian Shannon. Off-topic question. Kroger now appears to be carrying a boxed version of Emo's Pizza. Has Jim tried it yet? And if so, comparison to the original. So I'll ask you that, and then everyone wants to know what's going on with you and Kroger.
Well, that's the thing you just did now. Kroger is trying to woo me back already. They've got me again, trying to get me with the Emo's Pizza, for fuck's sake. And you know what I've done, Brian, is I've gotten popular enough. Actually, I've just gotten retweeted enough and or the little hearted enough on the Twitter machine that it's triggering all kinds of things. And now these two worlds are colliding. T'other day, I wanted to go to the grocery store. And I know for people who've said, oh, you ought to have your shit delivered. I don't want people to pick out my meat. I don't want them to choose how my deli meat is sliced, the thickness for my sandwiches, or my various cuts of fine beef and pork and chicken and whatever the fuck it is. I don't want people to smush my bread. Don't you hate it when people smush your bread, Brian? You can have canned goods and bulk shit and stuff like that, and that's wonderful, and we do that from the bulk buying establishment. But I want to go pick out the shit that I'm picky about eating. And I don't mind going there and doing that if the transaction is as pleasurable as it can be under the circumstances. But what the problem is with me and Kroger is because how do you feel about the U-scans, Brian? Now that we're on this subject, I'm just going to go ahead and just come out with this. How do you feel about the U-scans?
Not a fan, because although it's supposed to save time and be convenient, I've never seen a U-scan section where there didn't have to be someone hovering over it to fix problems that constantly arise.
There you have it. And that's why I was going to say that I've gotten to the point where I've triggered the bots now that are just going to disagree with me, because I vented my frustration at Kroger the other day, which, by the way, I've sworn them off. I've just sworn them off. Now they get the Emo's Pizza. Probably not in my neighborhood. Who knows? But it doesn't need to be that way, but it is. And I tweeted that I was done with these people because of their fucking U-scan, while they're paying people to stand there and stare at us, try to figure it out, etc. And of course, a bunch of people with righteous indignation have said yes and started listing all the problems. But then I have accounts that don't follow me. I don't know how they got this information, but now they are disagreeing with me. You're right, but they all say the same thing, and you're a boomer, and you can't figure it out. And I think it's at some point you trigger something when any sentiment of yours. I could say, God damn it, I hate it, this nuclear fallout, this radioactive fallout that's come from that nuclear explosion. I hate it that it's melting all the neighbors. And somebody would say, God damn it, at least you'll glow in the dark. You don't have to plug in a nightlight. See, that's what it's just they pop out of. So anyway, so I know I've hit something here that affects a lot of people. It's not that we can't figure out the task of, okay, take the goddamn gimmick, slide the barcode across the thing, bleep, and it scans it. That's at the root of the thing, the way this thing's supposed to go. But number one, it's like all this other technology. It don't fucking work. And they talk about, oh, the boomers can't pay. Well, I got news for you children out there. You don't know what the fuck to do without a goddamn cell phone. So it's the same goddamn thing. You're completely lost in how to live your life. But I can interact with people in the purchase of my goods. I go to the store in the morning because I don't want to be there when it's all fucking crowded because it even gets worse. But I'm not talking about 6 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. You should have more than one lane open when somebody, and I didn't even have as much as usual, but when somebody's got an entire basket load of groceries, because it is a grocery store, it's not a convenience store. It's not a place you go in to pick up a couple of items. You're feeding a goddamn some element of a fucking family, whether it be just some guy and his wife or goddamn Mormons with 6 wives and 18 kids. I don't know what the fuck's going on around here. But people get a lot of shit. And there's only one human being with one checkout lane, and the fucking carts are backed up at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'm trying to go through the fucking U-scan, even though I've in the past done everything I could to avoid it for these reasons. First of all, whenever it goddamn picks up the goddamn Kroger card, which takes a minute on my keychain. And then I get that. And then you start scanning things, but then you have to put them on this fucking round coffee table sized fucking apparatus in these flimsy, tiny plastic bags that you can't get fucking open. And if you don't goddamn put the item on the goddamn thing, then some way or another, it senses that you're trying to stick it in your fucking crotch and make off with it, and it fucking flummoxes the thing up. So you got to put all the shit in here somehow on this goddamn lazy Susan motherfucker. That's about as big around as a goddamn, as the average fucking manhole cover, while you're trying to find the barcodes at all the different places. Then I have to call the lady over because I've got onions. They ain't got no barcode. I just put them in the plastic bag. She's got to wave a card and hit a button and, oh, how many are there? So-and-so. Okay, how about these green peppers? Oh, you got to weigh those. Put those on the thing. Okay, how the fuck am I supposed to know how to do this? Then I say thank you, and then I fucking get that shit. And then as I'm ringing up other shit, I ring something up and it says help will be there. I said, I don't need any help. But now you can't do anything else until help comes. And help comes and she waves the card and hits a fucking button. Said, I don't know why I needed help. And by now I've turned the milk over on my goddamn hamburger buns on this thing, trying to wedge everything in on this tiny fucking platform. And finally I get to the goddamn end of it. And it says, it froze up again because it froze up again as I was ringing my last item. And she had to come over and turn it on again. And that's good. And I'm checking out and I'm using my coupons because, Brian, I play a game. I get coupons in the mail from Kroger for the various items, and I go and see how much I can fucking get back from these greedy bastards. And sometimes with the Kroger card and or these coupons, I'll take 50 or 60 bucks off the goddamn day. More when they have the buy two, get two 12 packs of Sprite Zero, whatever. And everything's working perfectly. And I get to the last goddamn coupon. And as I scan it, it says, help will be on the way. But now the help lady is gone. And there's no way to go back or go forward or just say, never mind, I don't want to save the 75 cents. Take this off. You can't do any goddamn thing until help arrives. And so I'm standing there looking around. I've gone through this whole fucking process for one goddamn bar scan. So basically, finally, she comes around and I say, you know what? If it's this difficult for me to give you this much money, apparently you guys aren't that interested in selling this stuff. So go ahead and keep it. Keep the coupons, keep the food, keep it all. I will go elsewhere. And I left them sitting there staring at it. And I went to Paul's Market, where they got human beings to greet you with a smile. I want to go through the fucking lane and have the professionals scan and weigh and ring up my shit while I'm putting it out of the goddamn cart. And I will meet it at the other end, where if there's not a bagging person, I will bag it myself while cheerfully conversing with the fucking ringer-upper. And if there is a bagging person, I will oversee them while grabbing my chips and my goddamn bread so they don't get squished. And I put them in the baby seat. And then I thank everybody. And they thank me for my business, so I feel like I'm appreciated. And then they say, have a nice day. And I return the fucking platitude to them. And there's been a transaction. I feel like I'm goddamn halfway stealing this shit anyway when I just fucking go do it myself and everybody's staring at you like you're trying to get away with something. And the thing don't work. So it's like, oh, what the fuck? It's stooging on me. Is it going to call the cops? The cops will be here in a second. I figure it's the next screen I'm going to see. We saw you put that goddamn big pen in your pocket. It's my pen. I carried it from home. I've got a list. Fuck you. It's uncomfortable and it doesn't fucking work.
And in terms
what was the question?
Well, in terms of efficiency too, if the whole idea is we're going to save money and make things more efficient by having these things, you make things less efficient. There always has to be at least one person monitoring the area because the machines never work the way they're supposed to. Even if you do everything exactly how they tell you to. Put the apples on the thing. You put them there. Please wait for someone. Why? They're there. You saw them.
Well, but besides that, what kind of are these fucking Martha Crisp apples or are these fucking Washington State stick 'em up Uranus apples?
Probably Honey Crisp.
I don't fucking know. I'm not a goddamn apple expert. I may have known they were apples because it signs that apples. Just give me some fucking apples.
Yeah, create a few
jobs. So you have to go through
create
all
a few
of that.
jobs. If the supermarket's going to go out of business because 5 additional people were hired to be tellers.
Not tellers. No, they won't tell you nothing.
But you know what I mean. If they're
cashiers.
If you hire 5 people to be cashiers, you create 5 jobs. And it's a lot easier for everyone there, and the lines will move quicker if there are lines.
Well, you know what, since I tweeted that, because I didn't know, I wasn't going to be negative at the top of the program and bring that up. A lot of people have tweeted saying, please talk about, we want to hear you talk about this because we hate these sumbitches also. But apparently now I got to, that my displeasure with them has been publicized. One guy tweeted out, said that, well, I guess you wouldn't know, but in the Louisville area over the past year, it's been on the news along with video footage. And this is not just like bullshit. And there's been Kroger commenting and or closed a store for a day or so, but rodent infestation. People were seeing little hurry, scurry, furry things running around, and they closed a section of one store while they went through the cleaning protocol, and the health department had to get involved. And I think they closed another store for a day or whatever the fuck it was, but it was on the news several times. Somebody that tweeted me said, well, if the stores ain't the problem, the problem is the fucking warehouse has got the rats, and they're shipping the rats out to the stores with the shit they ship from the shit they ship. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. It's even more disgusting now.
Yeah. So fuck it anyway. Fuck your U-Scan. I'll buy my rodent meat elsewhere.
While you're getting this off your chest, any final words for Kroger? Any other thoughts or suggestions you have for them?
Yeah, below me. It's ridiculous. There's all those lanes there that I remember. It used to be a nice shopping experience where you go in and, as I said, you have the interaction with the people, and you feel like you've gone and gotten your food, and you feel appreciated when you leave instead of trying to get away with something. But they've got like 12 or 15 fucking lanes that are never open, and then this U-Scan horseshit that doesn't work. And then they all these stores with these U-Scans are complaining about theft. Well, then have your people tell us what we owe you rather than us doing it ourselves. And maybe it would fucking work out better for everybody.
Well, you know, Jim.
Yes.
When hearing this story of commerce gone wrong, it makes me think about how to fix this. It makes me think about who can jump in and fix someone's business, their online presence, their online commerce, and so much more. Of course, I'm sure you can imagine. I'm speaking about our very good friends at Shopify.
Oh, I'll tell you what, Brian, not only they'll fix it all right because they know the right people. And if you deal with Shopify, ladies and gentlemen, let me assure you of one thing. If you align your business in the year 2026 with Shopify, the fix will be in because they know the right people. They are going to take you and they're going to make you an entrepreneur, a founder, a boss. You're going to get a territory. You're going to have a bunch of capos around you, and you're going to be responsible for a bunch of the foot soldiers, and you're going to be part of the thing of ours.
Yeah, I don't know where
called
you're going.
The internet commerce. It's a big thing. You see, Brian, now that all the commerce is done on the internet, because the internet's the most commercial thing. Well, they've got 5 families that have divvied the whole thing up, and God. Shopify is one of those families.
Shopify is not one of those families. Let's not say that.
Shopify, millions of entrepreneurs have made the leap into working with the people at Shopify because, you know, they had great little websites there, but nobody was hearing about them. You know what I mean? Nobody was hearing about them. They were just shouting in the forest, all empty and everything, with the tree falling, but nobody heard what happened. You've heard that old story. But instead, when you team up with Shopify, they get the word out about you. They spread it all around the email and the social media campaigns. They're walking down the street. One guy comes up on one side of you, the other guy comes up on the other side of you. They say, hey, you heard about so-and-so. He's with Shopify now. He's okay. You got to take care of him. You got to spend your money over there. You know what I mean? And they give him a little elbow in the ribs, maybe stick the gat right in the rib cage.
All right.
The guy gets the idea.
Ladies and gentlemen, there'll be no gats. There'll be no elbows to the rib cage. What there will be is a way to increase your business and to help you and your business get out there to the entire internet. Easy sales, easy discoverability, and so many other things.
Is that a word?
We work with Shopify. We work with Shopify if you want to discoverabilize that. And of course, you can too, our very good friends, the very professional people at Shopify.
Yes, that's exactly right. And folks, they're going to I'm telling you, they're going to do everything for you they've done for millions of other entrepreneurs that now are protected under the family protection with Shopify. They're going to build your dream store. Everybody better show up to build it, or elsewise they'll come after them. And
they're not coming after anybody. They're coming after sales for you.
Yes, and setup is fast. Marketing is built in. As you grow, Shopify grows with you. You know, at first the VIG is this, and then the VIG is going to be that. But you know what? Everybody's going to share. They're going to be farting through silk. Handle more orders, expand to new markets, and do it all from the same dashboard. Behind the dashboard of a 57 Chevy with a little chihuahua and hanging from the mirror with the head going whoop, 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 whoop. Folks, in 2026, stop waiting and start selling with Shopify. Cha-ching. Sign up for your $1 a month trial period and start selling today at shopify.com/JCE. That is, again, shopify.com/JCE. $1 a month trial period, Brian. $1 that can change your life. And it'll bring you into the family. So you're going to be on the right side of things. And you get the protection and the mentorship and the guidance that you deserve from Big Godfather at Shopify.
Once again, all fun and games aside, we trust them. We use them for our online business, ArcadianVanguard.com. You can trust them and use them for yours.
That's right. They've got their own unique, weird code of honor. They're not going to stooge. They'll just take care of it later on the old world way.
Again, not the examples we need, but one final time here, Jim, as we wrap up this professional spot, let the listeners know the promo code and the way they can get this great deal.
Shopify.com/JCE.
All right, of course, that joyous sound means we're ready to move on here with the show.
It sounds like a cross between the Edge of Night and the Golden Globes.
Speaking of cross, the WWE talent has been cross the big ocean. They are in Europe, which I found out.
Deep in the big muddy.
Which I found out in the midst of Raw. I forgot what time it started, but let's talk about whatever you watched on WWE Raw this past week.
Well, let's talk about what I didn't watch on Raw, because I want to plead my case, Brian. I want to plead my case to the listeners out there. It was on early, and of course, and I've got a variety of things I need to do during the day. I can't just hop in at 2:00 in the afternoon and just watch the wrestling show. So I was going to do what I normally do, is wait till the next morning, and then I can fast forward through the great majority of it. And I read the recap online, and I want to plead my case. Does anybody think that I should have watched this program when we talk about what was on this program? That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to defend myself against not being interested in this. Apparently, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez, Lyric Valedictorian, Bailey, Oscar, and Carrie Sane all came out and did an interview and got in an argument and got in a fight with each other and set up a match for later on. They did that.
I've never seen that happen before. It must have been really exciting.
It's a revolutionary concept. And then old Javon Evans beat Bravo Americano, who is not, I thought it was Grande. Apparently now there's multiple Americanos. This is another of the things that we haven't give two shits about. And then I was thinking, well, Punk's got to be on this show. CM Punk apparently came out and did a live promo with Finn Balor, and they set up that they're going to have a match next week. And they had stern words for each other. And then the aforementioned three-way tag team match with 6 girls and no people, or whatever the fuck, happened. And after that, a lot of other girls did some promos. And then my boy, Austin Theory wrestled. He and Bronson Reed had a tag team match against Penta and Dragon Lee. And apparently they lost the match by disqualification when Braun Breaker came out and they just beat the shit out of Penta and Dragon Lee, which I highly encourage people to do. I think there should be more of that in the world. But blah. And then Braun Breaker got suspended, apparently, wherever this may be going, for snatching Adam Pearce. And here's the thing. You can punch him, you can pile drive him, and you can drop kick him, but don't snatch him up or under the rib cage. He's goosey. He'll suspend you for that. And then Gunther beat AJ Styles. So we've settled that issue. Did anything thrill you there?
No. And I don't know if that's just because they know they're going to have a red hot crowd in Europe who they don't have to give much to and they're going to be really happy. It's like the Runaways got to Japan. Or is it just because the TV sucks? Because whether it's the length of time they're trying to fill or specifically the people who are doing creative and overseeing creative and compiling creative, it sucks. And it's a lot of the same elements that we all got sick of during Vince McMahon, his last 15 years in charge. We're seeing all that again with a different voice and Triple H being the one supervising all of it, but the TV sucks. I know this is early to say it. I mean, the Royal Rumble hasn't happened yet in Saudi Arabia. The stadium hasn't even been built yet, but the Royal Rumble hasn't happened yet. But I'm already not looking forward to the build to WrestleMania because I don't think they have much right now.
Back to the stadium for a second, because I saw the pictures too. Maybe they don't have the same codes or enforcement, restrictions or whatever as construction people do here, but what's going to happen if there's 50,000 people in this thing and it just all falls in?
It'll land on the wrestlers.
Well, no, they'll be safe. It'll all collapse around them. They'll be in the middle I guess where will the locker rooms be? Hopefully Squished. An underground bunker.
Yeah. It'll be like Pompeii in 100 years. People are like, we found the bones of the Miz.
He was all skin and bones anyway. But yeah, so that's January 31st. Have we seen any pictures since last week? Have they put seats in yet in this fucking thing?
No, but I have no doubt that they'll have it done. I have no doubt that they're working around the clock. I have no doubt they're using slave labor. I have no doubt that they will not accept anything except the stadium being done in time for this. So I don't think there's anything to worry about.
I don't know. We can't knock Saudi Arabia anymore now. It's safer than Minnesota.
I don't know about that. Try to do anything that the government hasn't told you you're allowed to do in Saudi Arabia. See how long you'll last.
Try to do anything the government hasn't told you can do in fucking Minnesota.
All right, maybe it's a draw.
I'm about to say, I believe we have a goddamn strap match going on here.
It's going to be interesting.
Anyway.
This is like a trial run too. This show for next year, WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. This is a major pay-per-view Royal Rumble. It's one that people look forward to. It's one that some people have parties for every year. It's one that non-wrestling fans actually like. That show is going to be the middle of the day or the morning. When the Saudi Arabia shows, are they the morning or the middle of the day? I forget now.
Oh, goddamn. Like you're asking me like I'm going to have this information off the top of my head. Why do Googlefy the information on how to view this thing, and it should... That should be part of the important information, what time it comes on.
Right now it is 10:19 p.m. in Saudi Arabia as we are recording, so they are 8 hours.
They're 8 hours, but we don't know what time they're starting.
We don't know, but I think sounds
they're
like...
8 hours past us, so if they start at 7 o'clock at night, that would be 11 o'clock here in the morning. Would they start at midnight to start here at 4:00? What's happening here?
What's happening here is I think we got the very first example of breakfast with Wrestlemania. It's going to be a big hit for 2 days this year. Your French toast, your pancakes, and your body slams all coming from the beautiful, extravagant home of Saudi Arabia, the future home of WWE's headquarters, and their Hall of Fame, and their museum, and everything else. Any other thoughts on the WWE creative beyond Raw?
It's just,
Am I being over the top, or do you see where I'm coming from?
No, well, I think they're trying to lull us into a little false sense of security, so they'll put the gas on for WrestleMania a little bit, starting with the Rumble. But it's just, that's the thing, is there's a lot of time in these, and now SmackDown's 3 hours again, a lot of time to fill up. They may think they don't have to do more, but I think they've gotten a position where the only time the top talent will wrestle in a main event, but otherwise it's some middle card guys against some middle card guys. They do the same kind of gimmick matches. They do the same kind of formatting of the shows. They do the same stuff all the time, and it's just kind of blah.
Well, that was WWE Raw. And that's the state of WWE. We shall now move on here with the program. Jim, do you have anything before we get to the non-Jim curated?
Non-Jim? What? No, I don't want to talk about anybody but me. No, I do. Oh, and I do have one thing. This came in during the holidays. And this is an email, but basically we had asked the question here not long ago about the rumor that Sunshine may have passed away. Sunshine, the valet from the World Class days. And apparently, no, she has not. She is alive and well and married and apparently living in Florida and is obviously trying to stay out of the public eye. So, but for anybody that was worried about her, she's around, but she don't give a fuck about you. Leave her the fuck alone. No, she's got a nice, happy life now. Imagine that for an ex-wrestling personality.
And to follow up on that, I got a letter here from Missy Hyatt. She says, everything's great. Also, leave her alone. And I have something here from Baby Doll. It says, please leave me alone. It's a similar theme from all the women around wrestling to the fans.
I'm not sure that that was all warranted there, for heaven's sake. Some people like attention. But nevertheless, but I got an email with a question from a fellow named John Harris. And the reason why I got a tickle out of that was obviously because of Little John Harris. And I don't think it's the same one. But anyway, this was a simple question, and we've kind of talked about the answer to this before, but we might talk about other people that it applies to. Because he said, you mentioned that you and the Midnight Express, when you told a story, were finishing up in Mid-South Wrestling or finishing up in Dallas to go to Crockett or whatever. He says, were you all considered a package deal, or was it more of a Korean War style loyalty, like Jim Hurd said? Did a promoter ever ask if you could stay without Bobby and Dennis? Or then later on, obviously, Bobby and Stan. And really, that really never got a chance to apply to us specifically. And just to recap, when Watts put us all together and we finished up in Mid-South, we had already had both Flair and Dusty, and I've told the story, so I'm not trying to go into detail, but we'd already had Flair and Dusty asking us all three to come to the Carolinas. But Watts wanted us all three to go to Dallas so that he could get us all three to come back and make shots on his show. I've told that story. Well, because we all three had gone to Dallas, when we were ready to leave there, we wanted to go to the Carolinas, and they wanted all three of us. So we went there. And of course, Crockett was then bought by Turner and WCW. We were obviously there together. Herd had wanted to break us up and wanted me to be an announcer, and it didn't enjoy the midnight like everybody else did, whatever. But really, we weren't considering that either. The only reason that we did break up is finally when I just said, fuck it, I'm going to kill somebody. I've got to leave here. And Stan went with me. So that wasn't planned. That was a spur of the moment thing. So we never really had to, in Dallas, in Mid-South, in WCW, sometimes I would manage someone else in addition to the midnight, but that was on a case by case basis, and I didn't mind that. To Murdoch and the Six Mans, or Hercules as my bodyguard, or Big Bubba, whatever. That wasn't wasn't an issue, but we didn't start soon enough that we were going from territory to territory for a long period of time. And it would have been stupid for us really to break up until we'd reached the end of our rope and had no patience left, because we were known as a package. And early on, before we were known as a package, it obviously worked so well that, they wouldn't want just me. Some other promoter in another territory wouldn't want just me or just the midnight without me. But that was a thing, Brian, and that's why I said, let's open it up a little bit. In a lot of places, a local manager stayed and his guys revolved, like Jimmy Hart in Memphis. Whoever was in the first family depended on what heels were in Memphis, but Jimmy Hart was the resident guy. But in other territories and of the olden days, managers would go with who they were managing. Like I think about the Von Brauners and Saul Weingroff spent 10 years almost together in one form or another, because it was a money drawing deal from Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, wherever the fuck the only place I think that the Von Brauners went for 15 years that Weingroff didn't go with him was out to San Francisco or something. But because it was a gimmick that just worked. Ken Ramey and the Interns, even though there was a couple of different Von Brauners and there was a couple of different interns. Nobody could tell the difference. But it would just, then in Bobby Heenan stayed in Indianapolis and then stayed in the AWA for Vern, and just guys rotated. But he had long-term success with Stevens and Bockwinkel and et cetera. But so it just depended on who it was. Who was another traveling manager, in your opinion, Brian?
Yeah, and again, Jimmy Hart's the example from Memphis, where for a few years, lots of big stars came in, but he was the main event heel. Even though he was the manager. It was Lawler against Jimmy Hart and the First Family. And the WWF, you had Albano and the Grand Wizard. They stayed there. Guys came into them. Albano mostly tag teams after a certain point. Grand Wizard and Blassie, singles. And then I think of someone like Gary Hart, who, although he had some time in his runs in Florida, Georgia, and of course Texas, where he was there and obviously new people would join him, you also think of him as being kind of a traveling manager for Great Kabuki, The Spoiler, various other people.
Actually, now that you mention it, Gary was kind of like in reverse, because Gary might go to a territory to book and then bring in the people that he worked well with, that he knew had a great track record. So he was sometimes the advanced guy because of that, connection that he would often have with the office. He would, then assemble his crew based on, who worked well with him. But then some guys or tag teams that had, I think Jimmy Kent went territory to territory with the with the bounty hunters and Sir Clements, and later on, or was no, maybe first George Cannon, then Sir Clements, with the Fabulous Kangaroos, went to a variety of places. So it just depended on whether the gimmick was working or not, and whether, the sum of the parts was greater than the whole of the donut. I don't know what that old saying is.
Needless to say, neither do I. But all right, well, there it is.
All righty then.
There was a bunch of questions. We have a ton of questions here today and some big topics. Someone just sent it in. Now I can't find it in front of me. It was about Dennis's physique. The physique he had in 1984 in Mid-South, where he looked in great shape, versus 1986, let's say. For Crockett, the question was it the road?
Here's the thing, unbeknownst to Dennis that he was going to have the break of his career in 1984, he had spent all, or if not all, most of 1983 in the Memphis territory. And that's the one thing about working Memphis, you had spare time. You had free time. You could be home 6 nights a week. You could go to the gym. And not only Dennis, but remember what Buddy Landell looked like in 1983.
Yeah.
And he was in Memphis too, and they were working out together. And then serendipitously, we got the spot in Louisiana, and Dennis was in great shape. And I mean, Bobby was always he had almost no body fat on him whatsoever in 1984. In those, if you go back and watch the videos of the matches, he's like 215, and he's taking those bumps, but he's got no fat on him. His cardio's off the charts. He just didn't have a show body, and he never really worked out in the gym. He was just natural. But it affected each guy differently. That 1984, they were both in great shape. Well, by the end of that year, when we went to Dallas, where everybody got a chance to relax and breathe for about 6 months. So it did. Bobby had gained 10 or 15 pounds by that point, and that wasn't bad for him to be 225 or 230. And Dennis got a chance to start working out again. And then we went to Crockett. And then that fucking schedule was, if you look at early 1987, Bobby, even though he's working every night and multiple times a day sometimes, because he really didn't, and he had kids by this point. He didn't go to the gym. He wasn't a worker out guy. He's gained like 20 more pounds, and Dennis has lost his definition because he can't get in the gym because we're working 12 matches a week. So it was starting to break everybody down. And then when Dennis left, Stan came in. Stan was in great shape because Stan had been in Florida working 5 days a week, 20 miles from home for nothing, right? So all he could do was work out. And he got Bobby back in the fucking groove to where Bobby started losing a little weight. But that was the thing, is it would depend on your schedule and the road and what you were doing. And with me, especially at that period of time, 86 and 87, I was running ragged around the ring and keeping weight off of me until I blew the knee. And then in 87, I was chubby and I blew the other knee. And by 88, I'm fucking fat because I wasn't as active as I had been. So then I had to fucking lose all that weight for those bunkhouse matches and the 88 bashes. But you had no time whatsoever the Road Warriors and those guys, I don't know, besides the chemicals, pharmaceuticals, whatever you call them, they just had to goddamn not have families or anything else to have time to get in the gym and do what they did. They were amazing. But, it would beat you the schedule and the road and the amount of working and the odd hours and the eating on the road, etc., would make you look like shit sometimes in those days. Thankfully, appearance was not mandatory yet.
All right, Jim. Well, let's move on now with some questions. This one was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Kyle in Columbus, Ohio.
Kyle's mom is a bitch. She's a big fat bitch. She's a big fat bitch. Oh, yes, she is. She's a big bitch. And
It's going to be a lot of bleeps on YouTube. We're early in the clip. No need for this.
Okay, sorry about that. Well, that's South Park.
Well, it is important to note Kyle is banned from sending in any questions for the next 6 months. Kyle?
Why?
You've sent in the same series of questions over and over and over again. I'm going to ask one because it's a good question, but you're not allowed to send in anything else for 6 months. If you break that, you'll be blocked. The onus is on you, my friend. But Jim, here's Kyle's question.
And then we'll talk about Kyle's anus.
With Roman Reigns, we will not. With Roman Reigns saying in an interview, he wants to wrestle 1 or 2 more years max. If you guys were booking this and not the popcorn farts on the neck. Okay, I'm going to try to get to what he's writing here. Would you give Roman Reigns 1 more title run? Or is it time to focus on the next crop, whether it's Braun Breaker or Jacob Fatu or Jey Uso, etc.?
Well,
maybe take Jey Uso off that list, but
well, we could do that. If he's saying a year or 2 years, there's no way to tell, because if you've got 2 years with a guy, you got plenty of time. Roman Reigns is a major name. I know he's not wrestling often, but he's a major name. He's been in the mix for so long. You can do some things. Hopefully The Rock will stay out of it. That's the only thing we wanted to see was The Rock against Roman Reigns. We've never seen that. And that wouldn't do anybody any good. But you've got plenty of time. If you're starting to do something with him and you see that the opportunity is there, whoever is the champion, you could do something, you could swap it back and forth or blah, 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 whatever the fuck. That's plenty of time. If he's finishing up in the next 6 months, I would start thinking about, how he can politely open a door for somebody else. But he doesn't need the title. But if it fit, because his opponent that you wanted to do this deal with, that you thought he could draw money with, was the champion, and holy shit, it would work. It's getting over. It would work out if he beat him and then he dropped it to whatever. That should still entirely be on the table. So there's no way to answer that question in a 2-year time frame.
It is interesting when you think about how he's being used. He's one of the biggest stars in the company. And I think what helps that is that he's never there. I don't know whether it's because of Hollywood or health, but he's never there. And this is not a new thing. This is going back to when he was the world champion and he defended the title like 6 times. And they're like, he's the longest reigning champion. He's had 6 matches. But he's never there. He's certainly meant more as champion not being there than as just a returning babyface. We've seen him get a returning babyface pop several times, and then he vanishes again.
Yeah, there needs to be, if you're going to do something with him for more than just he's going to pop in for a special attraction match, if you're going to build around him, he needs to commit to something to where he's not just going to re-debut, shoot angle, have match, and leave. It's got, there's got to be some steady movement for a few months on the thing to get it really going. If you would be considering putting a belt on him or having multiple matches with a champion where he would win it, lose it back, or lose it to somebody else or whatever. If he's just going to, like you said, pop in every once in a while, it may just be special attraction matches. But, they will spend any amount of money to get whatever the fuck they want. And if Saudi Arabia wants him in a big WrestleMania match with a goddamn major opponent and blah, 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 I'm sure they will pay him to come back and build that up.
Just wait until Saudi Arabia wants John Cena. Then it's going to be really interesting. But we'll see what happens with Roman Reigns. Jim, I got a couple questions here.
You know what they could do? They could book John Cena Sr. and when he shows up, just say, hey, retirement, he's fucking gone to pot.
Jim, we have a couple questions here sent in by Sean on Long Island. Let me get to this first one here. Bret Hart is my all-time favorite wrestler, but I often feel his WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels is overrated. I thought it was slow and boring and could name at least 10 better Bret Hart matches. What is your opinion on the WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match?
Well, I definitely think there's 10 better Bret Hart matches, but that's still not really an indictment of that match because he's had a lot of great matches. But having said that, it was the wrong place to fucking do it. I still maintain. Because it was Los Angeles. It was not only Los Angeles, but a WWF crowd in Los Angeles. Which, they were not concerned with a classic match in any stretch of the imagination. And as it went on, and they knew it not only it went on, but they knew it was going to be an hour ahead of time because it was an Iron Man match. It wasn't even like a match that just kept building and building and going, and everybody was shocked. And the people that were there had seen enough pomp and pageantry and decided to beat the crowd and started leaving early. And it just wasn't a reaction that those two guys going an hour would have gotten in Charlotte, North Carolina, or Dallas, Texas, or probably even Madison Square Garden, because of just the difference in especially that era's WWF wrestling fans from the heartland to the coasts. So, I mean, it was better than what a lot of people could fucking do in the ring, but it wasn't right for the venue, and they could have had something more memorable in the ring if they'd have gone half the time. But then the question is, that was just the live in-house reaction because it was still WrestleMania. Was that the right way to, they both wanted to, even though they didn't want the other one to get credit for it, both those guys would want to have a 60-minute classic. But the question is, did it draw better on pay-per-view because it was an Iron Man match and it was promoted that way rather than just Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels? Who knows? But yeah, it wasn't their greatest match or Bret's greatest match, but it was the main event at WrestleMania, and it, even though I don't like Shawn all that terribly much, it was better than most people could do anyway. But that's a lesson again on just a great match alone. In 1996 in Los Angeles, those people were still thinking a Hulk Hogan leg drop, 8 minutes. What the fuck's going on here? They didn't get the new style that was coming.
See, I didn't like the match at all. And when it first happened, I remember just thinking, I don't have to watch this again. And that's not typically what I would think after watching a good match, no matter how long it was.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of Vince McMahon force-feeding Shawn Michaels to the fans as a babyface champion, and it didn't really take. It took with him. Took him over if you listen to Bret Hart. But the fans never really got behind that version of Shawn Michaels as a babyface. Shawn Michaels.
I think that was the night that Jack Lanza said Shawn was going to have a repelling entrance, but I didn't hear him right. I said, he's always got a repellent entrance.
I mean, that's the other thing. The finish was clear. Who was going over, I thought, was clear, because even if you didn't know that Bret Hart was about to take time off, one guy comes out like he always does. The other guy flies down from the ceiling.
Who's going to win this? The guy that walks down the aisle to the ring, or the guy that gets flown from the ceiling into the ring and fucking with spotlights?
Do you think, looking back now, it would have been a better match at a minimum in the room if at the end of the hour it was tied 7-7 as opposed to 1-1?
No, that would have just been ridiculous at that point.
I mean, it doesn't have to be 7, but if it was more than 1 hour with a pinfall at the beginning and a pinfall at the end, if there was more action in the middle, almost like they didn't break it up like a 2 out of 3 falls match. It was just one giant long match, but you could have done more falls. I understand why they didn't. And that's what they wanted to put together.
That's the thing is, try to get even in a 2 out of 3 fall type of situation, try to get one of these motherfuckers laid out for the other one or, whatever. You see what I'm saying? I think it was just too long for the room and maybe too long for television, too long for pay-per-view for the WWF audience at that point in time. Flair and Steamboat in 89 going 56 minutes on a free Clash of Champions from the Superdome, was a little bit more in the flavor of what people expected, that kind of more than this. Just all of a sudden, in the land of Doink the Clown, we're going to have a great classic wrestling match. It didn't, and Shawn and Brett were still 96 Shawn and Brett, not iconic Shawn and Brett. And it would have been better at 30 minutes. They could have a great match. It's just the parameters you give them.
Well, here's the other thing. What did the fans in the building care more about that night? This match or the return of the Ultimate Warrior?
Oh, like I said, this was Los Angeles. Hulk Hogan, 8 minutes leg drop, ice cream bars. It's the Ultimate Warrior. Oh my God. 3 months later, they'd probably farted at it in his general direction when he came out the same building, but it was the nostalgia thing. And that's what the audience was at that time, especially for Vince. So it didn't get over.
That was the year that, like, starting at the beginning of the year, they booked Jake the Snake for the Royal Rumble, and it pulled you were in the office, you could tell me, but didn't it pull like a really big surprising number?
Yes.
And there was the year of like some of these guys returning.
They'd had 2 or 3 years where all of a sudden, not only was everybody new, and a lot of the stars had left because of issues or steroids or, trying to change talent or whatever, but everybody was new. And then all of a sudden, the names that people knew from 5 years previous start coming, Ultimate Warrior or Jake Snake Roberts or whatever, and people start popping again. The problem is in a lot of cases, that always happened in the territories when guys came and left, but the way Vince's business was at that point, all the guys that were coming back and getting pops were guys that were basically members of the Over the Hill gang, and the guys that were trying to break out and draw the money for the future were completely different animals that wanted to work hard and get over and have a little more oomph to them, that had been the NWA fans in the ring, the Steve Austins, that have wanted a little more edge to him. And so you've got the WWF 80s bunch that had drawn tremendous money for Vince, but was older, and or the schedule and their various habits had broken them down. And you've got these new guys, the Foleys and the Undertakers and the Austins and the fucking guys that liked the different kind of wrestling that they started watching and wanted to bring that whole personality. And it took a while before all that shit got sorted out.
I don't know if you would know, but what kind of payoff did Jose Lothario get for WrestleMania?
Oh, good Lord.
That was like the beginning of him being used, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, from my experience in those years, for a manager, I got for WrestleMania 10, where I was in 2 of the world title matches or whatever, was $25,000. They didn't pay the managers anywhere near what they paid the talent. I think Bobby Heenan had a $50,000 payoff on a SummerSlam in like 88, 89, whatever, when he was figured in, and it was a big deal. And I got like, what was it? Was it 10 or 15 for SummerSlam 93, managing in the tag team title match, but nevertheless, and the world title match. But I can't imagine poor Jose. They $5,000, maybe $10,000, whatever. One would think.
Well, Jim, I'm looking back on the Iron Man match. One of the things that may have changed the way the match is thought of today is if they had more energy, if maybe they had a different meal before the match, or they were looking forward to a different meal after the match, something healthy, something maybe with protein, or maybe they're watching their calories, whatever it may be. We know some delicious meals we could tell everyone about.
I'll tell you, I don't know what Michaels was eating after the matches back in those days. I would hesitate to think he's probably got a fur ball from it. However, folks, back in those days, as we mentioned on the road, you're snatching and grabbing food from fast food places and diners, and people set up with apple crates behind an alleyway somewhere where they're pulling refrigerated goods out of a cooler in the trunk of their car. That's the way we used to eat back on the road. But now it's modern times.
Yeah.
And if you don't have time, with your busy schedule and the hurry-scurry lifestyle that we all possess, if you don't have time to just cook a banquet, just a gourmet meal, just spend slaving over a hot stove in the kitchen, hour after hour, working your fingers to the bone, you don't have time for all that. Our friends at Factor are going to factor you in, figure you out, figure you in, and feed you, because they make it easy. Fully prepared meals designed by dietitians, crafted by chefs, and eaten by your greedy gullet. All you got to do is pop it in the various oven or microwave and heat it up and then stuff it in your face. As a matter of fact, if you want to live like an animal, you don't even really need to heat this stuff.
No, let's not make suggestions that they don't make. Let's go with the suggestion.
Well, it's always
by chefs, and of course,
whether they craft it or not, it's always fresh. It's never frozen, so it's not like you got to heat it in an oven for an hour and a half for it to thaw out. If you'll break your teeth if you try to eat frozen food. This is not frozen food.
Are we not men? We are men. We need to eat like civilized people, and of course, you need a civilized, good, nutritious, protein-packed meal, whatever it may be. I love what they send us. We just got the latest order. Suzanne had to throw away a bunch of stuff in the fridge so I can get these in there, because I'm looking forward to eating these.
Well, but did take that baby food and just fucking toss it. The kid can go ahead and chew. It's been long enough. But I'll tell you, we just got our box. Filet mignon.
Oh, I got that too. I got that too.
Parmesan shrimp.
I didn't get that.
Holy mackerel. No prep, no stress. Ready in about 2 minutes. They've got 100 rotating weekly meals. They just rotate around and you just reach in and snatch whatever you want. It's like a claw machine.
It's not like that at all.
Except you stick your own arm in. And
it's not like that, folks.
The options include high protein, calorie smart, Mediterranean diet. So you can eat like those Greek people. And boy, I'll tell you what, those Greeks, they
live a long time.
Yeah, they live it up.
A long time is what you want to say.
They certainly do. Yes. And the GLP-1 support meals, also the GLP-1 and ready-to-eat salads. The Muscle Pro collection supports strength and recovery. There's no refined sugars. They're all as crude as fuck. These sugars in this food will cuss and spit on the floor. They're not refined at all. No artificial sweeteners. No refined seed oils, no poppy seed oil, no rosebush seed oil. What other kinds of seeds are there?
You know what Suzanne just texted me?
What's that?
Any factors you didn't want. See, they're already trying to get my food.
They're trying to steal
it just got here. They're trying to take it from me. Any factors you don't want. I want them all.
Yes, you tell her that she's not factored into your factor.
I will tell her that.
But these meals will fit your goals and schedule. Healthier eating, calorie management, more protein. And again, just gnaw on the shit raw. It'll come to you. And you can just eliminate the middleman with even having to heat it up. Just chew on it and swallow it. Because it's good for you, and you will live as long as they do in the Himalayan mountains.
What?
If the studies have shown,
I don't know if that's
as long as you get the Himalayan diet, the Himalayan monk diet.
I don't think that's one of the offerings from the fine offerings that the fine people at Factor have.
There's panda meat involved, which has been scientifically
they don't have any panda meat. What are you talking about?
That's what causes you to live long, because of the panda meat.
Ladies and gentlemen,
folks,
we're talking
can go right now.
Meat that you enjoy on an everyday basis, whether it's chicken or steak or even fish, the finest in seafood and land food from Factor.
Or land food and seafood, or panda, which can be on land or sea.
Panda. I believe that's illegal, too. I don't think you could just kill and sell panda meat.
Well, you're not supposed to talk about it, but I wanted to let everybody know what they're getting.
They're not.
Folks, right now, head to Factor Meals. That's Factor, Factor. FactorMeals.com/JCE50 off. And you're going to get 50% off your first Factor box, plus free breakfast for 1 year. Guy's going to lead a chicken down the street on a leash. He's going to squat down in the middle of the front yard and shit you 2 eggs every day for 1 year. FactorMeals.com.
Not that way.
/JCE50 off, and use that code JCE50 off. You're going to get 50% off your first box of Factor and free breakfast for 1 year with that promiscuous chicken.
That's right. It's a metaphorical chicken, but delicious meals. I highly endorse
delicious chicken, too.
I highly endorse it. Once again, factormeals.com/JCE50 off. And Jim, from there, why don't we do some Guess the Program, get you in a good mood?
Well, now, all right. I've got to keep up. I was doing pretty good last time we did this, so I'm going to see if I can keep up my string here.
Of course, Guess the Program is where I go through programs in my collection, usually ones I have not yet filed away, and I quiz Jim on the details of the card, and he will guess the date, the locale, and everything else. We're having a great show here today, folks. Can't you just feel it?
Can't you just feel the energy?
Hold on.
I can feel tonight.
Let's start with this one. Jim, the opening contest listed, and their matches are, of course, subject to change.
Yes.
Tully Blanchard versus Sweet Brown Sugar.
Oh, boy.
Adrian Street versus Tommy Rogers. Dick Slater versus Ron Garvin. The Spoiler versus King Konga. Jake Roberts versus King Kong Bundy.
Bundy.
For a championship I will not name. Ted DiBiase versus Brad Armstrong. 2 more matches. The Road Warriors.
Jesus Christ.
Versus the all-star team of Jimmy Valiant and Tim Horner. And finally, for a championship I will not name, Ric Flair versus Stan Hansen.
Christ on a cracker. All right, it's... Well, before I'm going to tell you where I think it is, Tully Blanchard's Sweet Brown Sugar, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to San Antonio. Sweet Brown Sugar, that version would have been Skip Young, and I'm thinking somewhere around 1983-ish. And then Adrian Street and Tommy Rogers. Tommy Rogers actually worked San Antonio also briefly before he became one of the Fantastics, but Adrian, he may have popped in there, but Slater would have been a guy that would have been around Southwest at that point, but Ron Garvin was in Georgia. And then the Spoiler and King Konga, who was the Barbarian that we all came to know and love, would have been in Georgia about the same time as well. And Jake Roberts, King Kong Bundy. Bundy was... At this point, he had been in Dallas, but had not started with Vince yet. DiBiase and Brad Armstrong takes us back to Georgia, as do the Road Warriors, but then Jimmy Valiant and Ric Flair, and for that matter, Tim Horner, for what he was worth, which wasn't much, were Crockett guys, and Stan Hansen, for fuck's sake, was Stan Hansen. So this has got to be one of the early Pro Wrestling USA invasions of the Northeast and Vince's territory, with a cooperation from Southwest Wrestling, who probably still or shortly before that had the USA Network television show before Vince got it, and also the Georgia territory, and also at least some element of the Crockett cooperation. And Hansen would he have been working for Vern at this point in time? Because this is early on. I don't know whether it's Baltimore or the Meadowlands, but it was in 1984. So it's one of those places. So help me out here, because 84 will determine what the fuck was going on.
The date? Sunday, June 3rd, 1984. The Omni, Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, fuck. That was too easy. I should have realized. I didn't think it was the Omni. Son of a bitch. All righty.
On the front cover, it says Spectacular Tour underway now, and there's very crudely cut out pictures of people's heads, and you have Stan Hansen, Pez Whatley, the Road Warriors, Tommy Rogers, Jerry Lawler, Ted DiBiase, Ron Garvin, Les Thornton even made this, and others. Look for us. World Championship Wrestling, there is a difference. Cleveland, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, Baltimore, Maryland, Saginaw, Michigan, Wheeling, West Virginia, Columbus, Ohio, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Huntington, West Virginia, and the Meadowlands.
So this was June 1984. This was 1 month before Black Saturday, when
That's
Vince
right.
showed up and took the TV away.
That's right, but they already knew it was coming. It wasn't like he got the TV the same day he got control, or that he tried to get control. You know, there was a road to get there. There was a period of time where obviously Ole Anderson knew, I may not be able to fight this, but I am fighting it. All right, well, good job there.
All right, I was fooled by the obviousness of this.
Jim, this next card, Jungle Jim Starr versus Bruce Kirk. Bobby Nichols versus Eric Froelich. And the final special feature, Lonnie Main versus Woody Farmer.
Good Lord.
We have the Challenge of the Giants. I will name this championship for the Dreadnought title. Don Leo Jonathan, 320 pounds, versus the Crusher, 315 pounds. For another championship I will not name, Ripper Roy Collins, the champion, versus Lord Blears, the challenger. For the World Tag Team Championship, I'll name it, Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens, the champions, versus Paul Jones and Pepper Martin.
Good Lord.
And finally, the main event, for a championship I will not name, the champion, Handsome Johnny Berend, versus the challenger, Tough Tony Bourne.
Okay. Well, here's what we are dealing with here is an amalgam of people from a number of places. Jungle Jim Starr at one point was one of the interns with Dr. Ken Ramey. Eric Froelich was a West Coast babyface of some description back in the early 70s, it may be early 70s, it may be late 60s. Moondog Maine as Lonnie Maine, and Woody Farmer. Woody Farmer was again a California fixture. Don Leo Jonathan from the Pacific Northwest, and on the tail end of his career, the Crusher, who is 315 pounds. Any picture, anything? Was it Stan Crusher Kowalski? Was it just some fat guy we found at Shell?
There is nothing here to indicate who it is, but I would expect it's not Crusher Lasowski.
Well, obviously. Yeah, he didn't weigh 315. Ripper Collins and Lord James Blears, Hawaii legends in their own ways. And Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens, the World Tag Team Champions for Roy Shire at that point, against Pepper Martin, another guy who worked the West Coast and appeared in a lot of TV shows. I had forgot Paul Jones had a run out there. And then Johnny Barron on top means this is Hawaii against Tough Tony Bourne, who was a legend from the Pacific Northwest. So this is, and Blears being on the card, this is a Hawaii show at, what was the building that they were using in the late 60s, early 70s, the HIC Pavilion? With cooperation from the Portland and San Francisco territories. And I'm going to say Ray Stevens left San Francisco in 1970, I believe. So I'm going to say it was 1969.
The date? Monday, March 6, 1967.
Ah!
The Portland Memorial Coliseum.
What?
Portland, Oregon.
Holy shit.
The Parade of Champions.
Major show for Portland, so they didn't even run the bowling alley. They went to the big building.
That's right. The Parade of Champions in the big building, the Memorial Coliseum.
Okay, well, then it makes sense that Tony Bourne was in a main event. Rather than making sense, if it had been Hawaii, they brought Bourne in to work with Barron. But since it was Portland, they brought Barron in to work with Bourne. And was that the thing? They put Blears on the card as a kindness. You know, you're going to get a payoff to come up with Collins and a couple of these people, and we're going to talk some business. Because Blears wasn't, at that point, still working out dates, was he?
Maybe occasionally, but I think of James Blears as being retired by that point.
Yeah, so that's what threw me. All right.
Well,
I'm sucking today.
Let me give you a layup. Let me give you an easy one next.
Well, now if you tell people you're giving me an easy one, then that just shits all over what I'm doing, doesn't it?
There are more matches, apparently, than what is listed here.
Uh-oh.
Candy Divine, Nashville, Tennessee, versus Cowgirl Susan Starr, Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Warlock, from Parts Unknown, versus Mr. Jeep Swenson, from Parts Unknown. Nord the Barbarian, from Parts Unknown, versus Perry Jackson, Texarkana, Arkansas. Mil Mascaras, Mexico City, versus Sal Oliveras, Mexico.
Oh.
And finally, the main event.
And apparently he went back there right after this match, was never heard from again.
And the main event for a tag title I will not name. The Fantastics, Tommy Rogers and Bobby Fulton from the City of Angels, versus the Rock and Roll RPMs, Mike Davis and Tommy Lane, Atlanta, Georgia.
All righty. Well, hey, we're in Texas. Jeep Swenson spent some time in Texas. So did Nord the Barbarian. Perry Jackson was from Texarkana. Mascaras against some nobody that they brought in just to get him on the card, give him somebody to work with. And the poor Fantastics and Mike Davis and Tommy Lane, the RPMs. The rock and roll RPMs were obviously a Rock and Roll Express homage. But poor Mike Davis looked at least like a goddamn Sean Cassidy, or he looked more like Jack Cassidy that after the fire than he did, any teeny bopper idol, poor Mike. And Candy Divine was booked there because I guess they weren't talking to Moolah. She was only working for Vince at this point. This was, what would it have been? God, 80 is the real poor business days of Dallas in the late 80s. Are we talking 19? Well, the Fantastics came in to work with us in 88. So we're talking, is this where they came from? Or was this early 90s? Potentially. 1991 in Dallas, Texas.
You were so close. Monday, May 4th, 1987.
Son of a bitch.
Will Rogers Coliseum, Fort Worth, Texas. This card is the day after the David Von Erich 4th Annual Parade of Champions at Texas Stadium, May 3rd, 87. So they just put the card in the program for the Parade of Champions. You know, I remember the first Parade of Champions pretty well, and I remember the second Parade of Champions pretty well, too. After that, there are matches I remember, and there's a lot I don't remember. Here's one I don't remember. Battle of the Beautiful Bodies. $10,000 to the winner of a 6-girl mud match.
I remember that, actually.
6 of the most beautiful women in pro wrestling will converge on Texas Stadium this afternoon in search of a $10,000 prize. These lovely ladies will be wrestling Battle Royal style in the mud. Manager extraordinaire Percy Pringle III petitioned the WCWA Council asking that he be named the special referee for the unusual event.
And that was so that they could get Percy in the mud and dunk him in the mud.
WCWA's own gorgeous ringettes will participate in this battle. Miss Sherry Jenkins and Miss Candy Casey, both of Dallas, want to keep the $10,000 in the Metroplex. Miss Sherry is a former Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. Candy and Sherry will be joined in the mud by former Miss Tennessee Candy Divine.
Candy and Sherry will be joined by Candy and Cigarettes.
Well, she's not even the only Candy. By former Miss Tennessee Candy Divine. Was she ever Miss Tennessee?
No. She missed Tennessee when she was in Texas, probably.
Oklahoma Cowgirl Susan Starr, Las Vegas' Sally Rand, and San Francisco.
What is Sally Rand? In 1980-something, Sally Rand would have been 60 years old.
And San Francisco's Tiffany Crystal.
Oh, sure she was.
The rules of the event are plain and simple. Elimination can only take place by a pinfall or a submission. I thought it was Battle Royal style. The pinfall
but they don't know how to take a bump over the top rope.
The pinfall or submission must take place in the mud. Special referee Pringle told a group of reporters that the match will be called fair and square. Quote, I proved my manhood in the ring as a wrestler. Everyone knows what an excellent manager I am. Now I'm going to show the world just what a great referee I can be. Well, there it is, the 6-person mud match.
Let me just say, by the way, to put on this card that you just gave me in Fort Worth right after a Texas Stadium show, and this card be so shitty, I bet you they didn't have 200 people in the Will Rogers. But that was when they had gotten to that point, the stadium show, they probably, one of the boys knew some girls that worked at the fucking strip club or whatever. And then they had Candy Divine and the other girl booked that maybe they can get something out of the other, who knows who those girls were. But they were trying anything because they just lost it. And they knew what did that 87 Von Erich Memorial do? Was that the one they had like 5,000 people in Texas Stadium?
They may have had that many, maybe, but they still had another one in 88, which was even worse.
So the point is, by that point, they were just throwing things against the wall.
By this point, too, it had become the David and Mike Von Erich.
Yeah.
So, well, there it is, that program. Jim, here's another one. Opening contest, Mike George versus Taurus. Tim Woods is written in for the person who's supposed to be on the show. Tim Woods versus Zodiac. Ron Fuller versus Baldness. No, I'm kidding. Ron Fuller versus Nick Bockwinkel.
Ooh.
Jack Briscoe versus Ray Stevens. Mike Webster and Redbeard versus Eddie and Mike Graham. And the main event for the World Championship, Dory Funk Jr. versus Buddy Colt.
Okay, here's the layup, I think, because one thing concerns me, but I won't say what it is. One would have thought that if we got Tim Woods, Ron Fuller, Jack Briscoe, and the Grahams, and Dory Funk Jr. and Buddy Colt, that this would be in Florida. However, Ron Fuller versus Nick Bockwinkel. Nick Bockwinkel wasn't working Florida right before he went to work for Vern Gagne in the AWA in what was, I think it was either late 1970 or early 1971. He was in Georgia as a babyface. But that would mean that Ron Fuller, as a rookie babyface, would be working with Bockwinkel as a babyface. But they may have wanted Bockwinkel to put Ron Fuller over if he was on the way out, because Ron Fuller was a member of the Welch family, part owner of the office. I'm wondering, and also, but with Redbeard was a Florida guy. I'm trying to bounce back and forth and determine whether this is the City Auditorium in Atlanta or whether it is a show in Tampa or Miami, Florida from 1970. And my George, goddamn Redbeard, we're in Miami in 1970, goddammit.
Jim, the date, Tuesday, August 8th, 1972.
Oh!
Tampa, Florida.
All right. In that case, Bockwinkel was on loan from Vern because they ran a part-time schedule, and so was Stevens. That makes sense. But goddammit, I've busted another one.
We have a paid advertisement here. Help wanted. The position of valet to Bobby Shane, the king of wrestling, is now open. This is a tremendous opportunity for the right young lady. Needless to say, intelligence is not of primary importance. Mr. Shane is interested in a young lady with the proper attitude and appearance. If interested, send a recent photo, along with age and other pertinent information, to Bobby Shane, 106 North Albany, Tampa, Florida, 33606. Women's lib types need not apply. All right, one of those great ads from the Florida programs there.
And he was already, it wouldn't be 3 years till the plane crash, but he was not only well thought of inside the business as one of the best workers, he was the boy wonder as a teenager. He was being thought of as, and probably had served a couple times as a booker. And Bill Dundee told me that when he and George Barnes were in Australia, Bobby Shane told them, you want to go to America, you want to go to Tennessee to work for Jerry Jarrett, not Nick Goulas, Jerry Jarrett. He can get you over. And Shane's the one that gave Lawler the fucking crown in Georgia when Jarrett sent talent down to help the Georgia side during the wrestling war and gave the king gimmick. And Lawler stole a bunch of, researched a bunch of Shane's unique wrestling style. Now, since nobody has really ever seen Shane, the stuff that Lawler was doing was unique to him because nobody had ever seen the Bobby Shane stuff. But I mean, he was already getting guys positions and being discussed as not only a future booker, but a future potential champion and working in main events in all the NWA territories. So it's sad.
One of the biggest booking what ifs. If he had lived, what booking jobs would he have gotten?
Probably, I would think, because of the amount of places that he'd already been, the amount of territories he'd already worked and worked on top, he had good relationships with a lot of the promoters and especially Barnett. That's why he was in Australia, because, he was working for Barnett. And I think he would have probably had a bunch of them because he was so young. He was still in his 20s at this point.
All right, Jim, one final program here this week. The opening contest, one fall, 20-minute time limit. Pierre LaChapelle.
Oh, good Lord.
Versus Gene Anderson. A feature event, one fall, 30-minute time limit. Zaya Nandor from Budapest versus George Costi from Moose Jaw. The semi-windup, best 2 out of 3 falls, 45-minute time limit. George Scott and Nick Bockwinkel versus Clyde Steves and Dave Rule. RUHL.
Okay.
And finally, the main event, a handicap match, best 2 out of 3 falls, 1 hour time limit. Ramon Torres and Alberto Torres versus Killer Kowalski.
Okay. Year's going to take me a second. As soon as you said Gene Anderson, I thought, wow, we're in the Carolinas in the old days. Gene in the opening match, but that is not to be. George Scott and Nick Bockwinkel teaming up. This was the time period where George was teaming up with Sandy, but I assume maybe Sandy might have been injured or whatever. And Clyde Steves, was he not? Goddamn, he was a masked guy. Had some other gimmick. Goddamn, was it Superman or masked something or other of that nature? Raymond and Alberto Torres were longtime baby faces in the business and were over in a variety of places from California to Georgia. And Alberto was the one in the match with Ox in Iowa or wherever the fuck it was. The Ox's second confirmed kill. And obviously Killer Kowalski could have been anywhere, but what Dave Rule was for years a popular featured guy in the Stampede territory in Calgary. And I know that the Scott brothers worked Calgary. I know that this is far enough back that Gene Anderson could have been a rookie from Minnesota by this point. This is the early to mid 60s. And I don't remember Dave Rule being featured anywhere else, although this could be Portland. And once again, I'm crazy, but I'm going to go Calgary in 1963.
The date? Thursday, December 14th, 1961. Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Okay. Well, it could have been Calgary. It could have been Vagina. Whichever one it was is up there in Canada.
I think it's Saskatchewan. Is it Saskatchewan or is it Alberta? It just says Regina.
No,
it's Saskatchewan, right?
No, that's Saskatchewan, because that was Stampede Wrestling covered. That's why the trips were so brutal and miserable, because part of Saskatchewan butts up against Alberta, and they used to have to go across these frozen tundras from province to province. I bombed on those.
Well, another fun day of Guess the Program. And of course, Jim.
Yes.
This was a rather compact version of Guess the Program. We've done longer ones. And sometimes you need things compact. Sometimes you look at your wallet, you say, what is all this nonsense? There has to be a way to pare this down and make it more reasonable and functional. And we know people with a wonderful wallet that we can tell the listeners all about.
Well, that's right, because, and by the way things are going in the world, you don't need a big wallet because you ain't going to have much money to put in it. But folks, what you want to do is you want to go to our friends at Ridge, because that way you can protect what little you have left, because the Ridge wallet, with the unique, slim, and modern design, holds up to 12 credit cards. And if you have that many, chances are you're extending yourself far and above beyond your means. But it's also for driver's licenses and those cute little courtesy cards that they give you at strip clubs and all kinds of stuff, but it'll slide right in there is what it'll do. Slide right in there inside this incredible slimline wallet made with premium materials like aluminum, titanium, and carbon fiber. Over 50 colors and styles to choose from. And it's got hear that? The strap, the little money clip, the little thing, you slip your hand in there, boom. I just broke my knuckle. Boy, be careful when you hit people with this thing. But it's a self-defense mechanism as well as a way to keep your money, your cards, and your driver's license safe and ready whenever you need them, but away from prying eyes. It's got the special, the RFID blocking technology. That means if Ralph Freed, who's a complete idiot and full of debauchery, tries to stick his hand in your pocket and pick your wallet, it's going to block him. You will have no digital pickpocketers. Brian, you know how many times have I said, I enjoyed my trip to wherever if it hadn't been for the dadgum digital pickpocketers? You've heard me say this.
No, but I mean, that could be a problem if you did go out to places beyond where you go.
Well, they're everywhere. Well, I'm way out there, boy. I'm beyond where I normally go. It gives you peace of mind knowing that your Ridge wallet will be protected. And with the Ridge AirTag attachment, you're always going to know exactly where it is before you have the bag flip and panic mode kicks in. All you got to do is activate that. And then what you do is you take this little bad boy and you Velcro a magnet to it and you stick it underneath the hood or the door of your wife's car. And then wherever she goes, because of your Ridge AirTag attachment, you're going to know where that bitch is and what she's up to. And then you just wire the car with a camera, and that way you can keep an eye on her in video too. And then
let's not use these examples.
Then you've got to hire a private detective.
No, you don't.
But then no matter what you pick on Ridge.com, that's RIDGE.com, Ridge has free shipping, a 99-day risk-free trial, and a lifetime warranty on all of their products. You're not going to be I'm telling you, you could set this thing on fire. You could run over it with a car. You could have a bull just gore it at high speed. It will not harm the Ridge wallet. And that way, when you've got it underneath your wife's car, it's sitting on right underneath her seat, where it'll stay right next to her. You'll know where she is at all points in time because of the beeping.
No, again, that's not how this works, and that's not how...
It starts out low, but
it doesn't start out low. We're not going to pretend
it's like
this
first
is something...
It's beep, and then it's beep, beep. Finally, it's like the telltale heart. You can hear it in your head that the perpetrator will confess, Brian, because as soon as the cops are questioning him, all he'll hear is the wallet beeping. in his head, and he'll dig it up and show it to him, and then he'll be carried off to the insane asylum.
Again, you don't have to worry about any of these things because it doesn't beep and this isn't going to happen. But ladies and gentlemen, if you do need something to happen, you need to have your cards, you need to have your wallet, you need to have your money, you need things in your pocket without a big wallet weighing you down. Jim, a great wallet. We have them here. They've sent over some to us. I know they've sent them to you and Stacy. Great wallets.
I've got one right here in my hand.
Great sturdy wallets.
Amazing. It hurts my hand to slap it. That's how sturdy it is.
Well, stop slapping things. You're so violent today. What is this?
It's I'll tell you what, boy, when you throw one of these at a son of a bitch, hit him right between the eyes, he'll not fuck with your wallet again. Right now, for a limited time only until we say different, our listeners will get 10% off at Ridge.com by using the promo code JCE. Once again, Ridge.com. The promo code is JCE for 10% off, and you are all set with the most secure wallet. Woe be it upon the person who tries to steal this wallet because of the built-in immediate electrocution device that will render them totally helpless and able to have the boots put to them as they lay at your feet once they stick their hand in your pocket.
That's not...
Remember, you have to punch the button. If you want people to stick their hand in your pocket, you have to turn the feature off, and that way they can just play pocket pool with you all day long.
You don't have to worry about this feature, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, we like to have fun and play fun and play games and have fun here with these spots. But it's important to differentiate between fun and facts. And Jim,
well, it's all fun and games until somebody steals your wallet.
The fact is, this is a great wallet, a sturdy wallet, a compact wallet, and one that you can trust, like so many others have. Jim?
Well, you ought to go to Ridge.com and just look and see what it looks like. And that'll tell you right there. It's even smaller than it looks, because the computer puts on 10 pounds. But this thing's it's so skinny. Why, it'd use a Cheerio for a hula hoop.
Once again, let's give a great deal for the listeners, 10% off. One more time, Jim. A unique jingle just for you. What's that promo
Yes,
code?
That unique jingle. Well, I got Spurs that jingle jang, and my wallet doesn't jingle jangle anymore because it's strapped right to the side of my leg and all flat and everything and doesn't make noise. Ridge.com, promo code JCE, 10% off. Boy, howdy, and I'll tell you what, this thing, you can actually use it for a little coffee table too. Just set it right down and put your little cup on it. It's wonderful.
Maybe for your G.I. Joes, but once again, Ridge.com /JCE.
That's the site.
A great deal /JCE.
Yes, it needs legs for a table.
Jim, you know what that indicates? It's time for the last portion of the show, fun and games.
Fun and games.
Here on the show. It's been a little while since we've talked about retro figures, and I've got a bunch of the newest, latest retro wrestling figures here on my desk, seemingly all over my desk. Let's talk about some of these, Jim. These are the first figures. I have in my hand an Andre the Giant and a Macho Man Randy Savage from the Power Packed Wrestlers line by Figure Collections. And these figures are in the vein of the Star Wars figures, the classic 3 3/4-inch figures where the arms go up and down, the legs go up and down, the head goes...
The arms go up and down. Danger, Will Robinson.
The legs go, or the head goes side to side, but that's it.
The legs spread apart.
Well, again, these are the first two figures. I have to say I'm really digging these, and they were nice enough when I purchased these to send a bonus Andre the Giant yet to come out, so thank you. I collect Andre stuff. But it also has some of the upcoming figures, including Kona Bryan Adams, because they can't use Crush, I guess, and referee Mike Chioda in Star Wars figure form.
That's an odd pairing there. I get. Does he get his own referee or?
So 1977 Star Wars comes out. You weren't terribly interested. Were you at all interested in the toys?
Actually, here's the thing. I was kind of interested, but the fucking chaos surrounding the goddamn movie, I think I've told you this, everything was sold out and people were going multiple times and the theaters were packed. And at that point in time, I was either going to see like Caddyshack to watch Rodney Dangerfield, or if I was taking a girl to a theater to see a movie, I wanted an empty theater. So I never got around to seeing Star Wars. And then I was on the road a lot.
But in terms of the marketing behind it and the kinds of figures that were all of a sudden being produced, because there never really had been those kind of figures, small scale, 3 3/4 inch, better than the Mego figures.
Yes.
Did you have any thoughts about the toys?
I never had any of those. I never got any of those. No, I didn't.
All right. Well, now, for those who have them, you can have your adventures with Chewbacca, Han Solo, and Andre the Giant cruise the galaxy, or perhaps Macho Man Randy Savage drops in on Tatooine. But these are very, very cool with more to come. And if those Andres that were sent to me are for sale, please let me know. I'd like to buy more.
Yes.
But those are the new power-packed wrestlers. Jim's adding a lot to this segment. Let's go to the next thing we have here from our friends over at KWK, Kayfabe Heroes.
Now, they've got some nice figures. You've sent me some of their figures, and they have really fine figures.
Our friend Sean Ing over there produces some nice figures, and the latest are 3 variants. Let me pull them out. And the other one's missing here somewhere on the desk. Here we go. Well, of course, Jim, what I have here are 3 variants of Bull Nakano. Bull Nakano with her trade.
I've heard that she had several variants.
Well, this one has blue hair. There's one here with yellow hair, and of course, green hair, all with the trademark nunchucks. Any thoughts on Bull Nakano?
Well, did they make her anatomically correct?
What the hell does that mean? They made it look like Bull Nakano. It's a women's wrestler in the Hasbro style.
Well, it depends on how much can you take off of her.
Again, these are not toys to strip, ladies and gentlemen. I think most of the audience probably understands that. But Bull Nakano, when you were there, she had a great feud with Alundra Blaze.
Yes, she did. Alundra Blaze, also known as Medusa Michelli. They had a number of matches. Yes, they did. And many of them were rip snorters.
By the way, some of the upcoming figures in this line, which are available for pre-order, the Orient Express of Pat Tanaka and Kato, Flash Funk, complete with hat and fur. Is it a boa or a robe or whatever it is? And here's one that worked for you. I'll be interested when this comes out. There's a couple of variants. Well Done. The team of Well Done.
Timothy Well and Stephen Dunn, who were Rex King and Steve Dahl. And
which were better names. But yes, it wouldn't have worked. Yeah.
Better names, but it wouldn't have worked. That was, again, they were caught in the early 90s WWF. We're going to rename everybody these goofy names. Well, I guess that's not really connected or just constricted to just that time period, but they got those names. And then Rex King lived in Nashville, and I'm trying to remember, Steve Dunn may have lived there also. I'm not sure, but that's why when the WWF didn't have anything for them, they asked me, well, you want Well Done? Well, okay, they live in Nashville. I'll, try to help out. And that's what they were, an early opponent of the Thrill Seekers, Storm and Jericho.
They were formerly the Southern Rockers, if you remember.
Yeah, that would have been a better gimmick too, but...
Here's a question for you. I don't know if I've ever asked you this, but enough people are dead now that maybe you'll answer it.
Okay.
Enough people are dead or in prison now that maybe you'll answer it. What exactly went down with Tammy and Rex King, although that wasn't his real name, obviously, and Chris Candido, and how big of a distraction was it for you in the locker room for however long a period of time?
Well, no, or what do you mean? To talk about putting her in the trunk?
Oh, I don't know. I heard that there was some sort of nuclear heat between Chris Candido and Rex King, and it was over Tammy Sitch, and they were gone shortly after that.
No. You got I think I've told this story before, but it's been a while. But no, it was Rex King and Chris Candido and Tammy were riding back from one of the, I guess, like the eastern Kentucky towns one night in the middle of the night. And Tammy kept nattering and had, ticked Rex King off, and Rex King's stirring her up. And finally, Rex King decides he's going to talk Candido into going to the Mouse's Ear, the strip club. You ain't got any balls if you don't take it. We got to stop by the strip club on the way back. And Tammy's like, we're not going to the strip club. And I'm not doing justice to the story, but one way or another, Rex King had told Tammy that if you don't shut up, we're going to stop and put you in the trunk. And then she didn't, and they did. And they made her ride 10 or 15 miles, I guess, in the trunk, and then got her out. She wouldn't talk to anybody. I can't remember whether they may have gone by the Mouse's Ear. But that's the only thing I remember of a big whoop-de-doo between Tammy and Rex King.
But you don't remember a Chris Candido Rex King locker room fight or something was going down?
No, I don't think they were ever mad at each other. It just he was getting, shamed in front of one of the boys as to, aren't you going to do something? So we put her in the trunk.
Yeah, by the way, Suzanne knows how much I love her, and I love her, and I know she loves me. I don't know if we'd stay together if I just threw her in the trunk to drive 10 miles home and then let her out like, all right, we're home now. Come on out.
Well, but it's because it's only 10 miles,
All right. Well,
I mean, obviously, I wasn't in the car. I heard these stories secondhand that later on that week or whatever.
Well, Jim, another new figure here from a new figure line. This is from WrestleFeds by Toy Notion. I believe it comes out of England. Their first figure is Davey Boy Smith. They put out 3 different variants of the British Bulldog with his cornrows and his giant Union Jack flag attached to his arms with the words Bulldog on it, as famously seen in SummerSlam 92. There's pants that are, 3 different varieties of pants, I guess is the best way to look at this. A beautiful, beautiful figure, I have to say. They've done a great job, and they have a Randy Savage they just announced that looks like it may be the nicest Randy Savage I've ever seen. But in terms of Davey Boy Smith, you saw his early days on video.
Yes.
He managed him in the mid-90s. When he wrestled at SummerSlam 92, as bulked up as he ever was with the cornrows. You saw him throughout his career. What do you think was his best look?
I never got the cornrows for Davey because it's not like he's a Rastafarian or whatever the fuck. And it just, I think it may have hurt later on because remember when he went back to regular hair, he had started getting a little thin. I'm wondering if having all that shit tied in his hair for a while possibly hampered him. But the best look, I don't know, but his best work in the ring was that early 80s period where he had gotten bigger than young David, where he was, big around as a hiccup and, just skinny when he was a teenager. But at the same time, he hadn't gotten so big like he and Dynamite both by 85 when they were just gassed to the gills to try to compete with, they were in the land of the giants. Somewhere in between was where he was best in the ring. But the thing I think that was amazing about Davey is that even as he gained that weight and got that big, and I'm not talking about as big as he ever was at like SummerSlam 92, but I mean, just when I managed him, he was still incredibly strong. I mean, his fucking just lifting strength was insane. But he could still move and do the fucking headstand walk over onto his feet and all that stuff, even at that size. It's a shame that he had to, in some respects, gain that much weight to try to, hang with the bigger guys because he was such a great athlete. But best look wasn't the cornrows. I liked all the Union Jack stuff and the robes and the flags and the pageantry because he was the British Bulldog. That fit. But I think regular hair was, and maybe not gassed to the point where he looked like, he was going to explode. Somewhere in the middle.
Pants or trunks?
Trunks.
Really?
Why, if you've got a body that looks that good, why cover it up?
See, yeah, that's like the Vince McMahon thing to Jericho, that apparently he said to Chris Jericho, and that's when Jericho went to trunks. But there are certain guys, whether they have good legs or not, the pants just fit them better, and it looks better. I would thought Davey in the pants was better than Davey in the trunks.
I don't know. I thought he looked good in trunks.
All right, we'll see what the listeners think about that. All right, Jim, I have a couple toys here from Zombie Sailor Toys. These are not necessarily wrestling, but they're done in the Hasbro style. From the movie Bloodsport, Jean-Claude Van Damme as Frank Dux. Or Frank Duck. Oh, no, it is Frank Dux. Frank Dux.
You got all your ducks in a row.
Chong Li, better known as Bolo, from Enter the Dragon. Quickly, any thoughts on Jean-Claude Van Damme and the era of the new martial arts action hero in the late 80s, early 90s with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Kickboxer and Bloodsport and, of course, Steven Seagal?
Yeah, they're all fucking clowns. I mean...
there it is, folks. You heard
it. No, I mean, the Steven Seagal, have you seen him now? He's a fat, plastic-haired fuck that got all weird and thinks he's some kind of secret agent. And Jean-Claude Van Damme, who knocked him out? What's the guy's name?
Chuck Zito.
Yep, Chuck Zito. It's just a bunch of, like a latter-day Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris was another white guy that wanted to be a goddamn kung fu star. I don't think any of the goddamn... And don't get me started on David Carradine trying to, adopt the whole goddamn Eastern mysticism thing for his fucking gimmick. But no, they're not Bruce Lee. They're not even Jackie Chan. I always thought they all sucked. And have you ever seen a worse television show, worse acted, worse written than Walker, Texas Ranger, with a worse theme song?
You know what? I've never watched a single episode of Walker, Texas Ranger.
They've got the shit on now right after Superman on Heroes and Icons, handy TV on Sunday afternoons. You go from the adventures of Superman to fucking Walker, Texas Ranger. It's a goddamn letdown. But no, I always thought all those guys sucked.
MeTV just debuted Aaron Spelling Sundays with Heart to Heart. What is it? Heart to Heart?
Charlie's Angels,
Love Boat, and there's a fourth one I'm not remembering.
I don't know, but I like their Sundays better when they had 5 hours of Untouchables.
Well, they'll have to rotate it at some point. Jim, Demolition is still very popular. Seemingly all over the place. Multiple lines of toys that put out Demolition figures in the last couple of months. I have ones here from, I believe these are called Matt Maniacs, a unique take on the Hasbro style, I guess you could say. And the best ones here, at the same time WWE put out their first official Demolition figures in years, the unsanctioned line from Ringside Collectibles, I think, put out a much better Demolition. Axe and Smash with their bondage gear, I guess that's what we would call it. Demolition.
Well, are you casting aspersions on them and their Bill Eadie and poor old Barry Darsow and their various habits and proclivities? If they want to wear bondage gear, there's no shame in that.
Demolition stole the big one that stands out, I guess you could say, for the Hall of Fame. Not to take anything away from you in the Midnight Express, but in terms of the WWF tag teams.
Well, yes, exactly. And that's the thing, is that as far as a WWF or E Hall of Fame, Demolition worked there. They were actually there. And now they've put a line of figures out. Now that Vince is out of the equation, have they forgiven people who were involved in the lawsuits? Are they now going to recognize some of these people who they have not welcomed back into the fold in the past?
I'm no longer willing to concede that Vince is out of the equation, just that maybe he's been minimized. I don't know.
Well, but you know what I'm saying, as far as all of his particular grudges, they're not just following all those to a T anymore.
Well, again, a lot of the retro toy makers, Latuni's done a bunch of stuff with Demolition. They have a few things about to come out. There's like a 2-foot tall Demolition about to come out. But they've been doing a lot of these independent things, and then all of a sudden they got a new WWE deal. I always said the fastest way to get a WWE toy deal is do a toy with someone else. And then they'll say, well, you have to come do it with us. And they put out their Demolition at the same time Ringside Collectibles put out theirs. And I think Ringside Collectibles did a better job of capturing Axe and Smash. The helmet fits on Smash's head. The WWE one has a helmet that doesn't even fit on his head. But those are those. And finally, Jim, let's wrap up with a few things.
You've got the new Power Town figures?
Well, apparently Power Town is a big update in that nothing's happened. They've stolen everyone's money. They've done nothing. And if they have a problem with me saying that, come after me. Because at this point, it's ridiculous.
That they're scared to show their face at this point, aren't they?
Magnum TA should be embarrassed to go to another convention. I'm sure he won't be. Wrestlers, even if you like them, they have no shame. They'll show up anywhere. But he should be ashamed to show himself in person again, considering not just his role in this whole thing, but the attitude he had months ago. Whenever, whatever we were waiting for then, that the figures will be ready by November, or that I'm waiting for the money, which I'm guessing still hasn't come. But where's everyone else's money? And how much has Greg Gagne been paid? And how much did you guys think you were going to get from investors? See, that's the problem. All the companies we've talked about so far, all these independent toy makers doing their own thing, producing cool stuff, in small batches, they do it. They get the money, either pre-order or they build up enough reputation and they have enough money behind them, they could do it without pre-order, but they go out there, they produce the product, they deliver it. These guys, I believe, thought we're going to collect all this money, we're going to have Greg Gagne sign up everyone he could possibly find. Wrestlers that you've never heard of. Sign up everyone you can. And we're going to say to an investor, we've got all this money, we've got all these wrestlers, give us more money, and we'll make these toys for these people that paid. And I don't think anyone's going to do it.
That was the catching point in the whole thing, was they thought they were actually going to get people to invest in this, thinking, oh, it's going to be a mega deal. These people were out of the toy business for 30 years. And same thing happens when you're out of the toy business for 30 years, when you're out of the wrestling business for 30 years. You can't, everybody you go back to talk to is dead.
But that's the problem, I think. There's people that are basically like one-man teams, or two people getting an artist, getting someone to help with packaging. You get people to help you, but small groups of people trying to do this as opposed to you haven't done anything and you have a whole bunch of executives. The fuck is that? Who are you trying to entice to give you guys money to make Eddie Auger figures? Who? Go on Shark Tank. Let's see Greg Gagne go on Shark Tank. We'll see what happens to them. No update on them. But Jim, let's wrap things up.
Yes.
Figure-wise.
One more figure.
The latest from Hastel Toys. I'll mention a few things here. They put out their 3-pack of Phineas Godwin, Uncle Cletus, and Henry O. Godwin. That brief period of time where I even forgot about this. Tony Anthony was Uncle Cletus.
Uncle Cletus.
Do you have any memories of this? I have no memory of this whatsoever.
Yes. It was for about 3 months because, I mean, they had Tony around and the Godwins liked him. He liked them. So he became their Uncle Cletus to almost no acclaim whatsoever, because it was, again, the whole thing was if people were rebelling at this point, the fans were, on Vince's gimmicks that were stuck in wherever the fuck they were stuck in. They weren't even done believably like they would have been in the territories. They were dressed up. T.L. Hopper was the cleanest plumber I'd ever seen. So Vince loved the Hillbillies and thought, well, we'll give them. Remember, the Scufflin' Hillbillies had a manager, Cousin Alfred. Well, Uncle Cletus, same thing.
Well, again, these are in the Hasbro style, and also in the Hasbro style, another manager of the Godwins, and of course a wrestler on his own, Hillbilly Jim. Hillbilly Jim, from a former batch of Hillbillies, he crossed over to
batch of Hillbillies.
He crossed over to the next generation of Hillbillies.
Come to I forgot they had Hillbilly Jim with the Godwins too at one point. Yes, they were very clannish, those mountain folk.
How different would his career would have been totally different. How different would things have been if his knee injury, his leg injury hadn't been so bad that he couldn't be a full-time wrestler from, 87, 88 on?
You know, Jim, and I love Jim as a person, and I saw him at I think the last time was at the Hall of Fame thing in 2017. We ended up on the same bus. Friendly, great personality. He was not, in ring, he was not a world class Hall of Fame wrestling talent, but he had the personality and the gimmick. I think actually it was probably better for him the way that it happened, in that Hillbilly Jim got over really strong for about 3 years, and then he got hurt, but he was able to transition into doing the thing with him for Coliseum Video, where he was the spokesman and did appearances. He, a guy, no bad habits, isn't going to get arrested or end up in a newspaper. Great at talking to sponsors and doing media and shit like that. I mean, a couple more years of, Hillbilly Jim, and he would have ended up like a lot of the 80s guys were when, the 90s came around and their shit was stale. And then would they have taken him in WCW at that point in time, where he'd had to start a brand new gimmick? Because he was only in the business for about a year before he became Hillbilly. He was Harley Davidson. He's from Bowling Green, Kentucky. They broke him in Memphis. He and Roger Smith were partners. Dirty Rhodes and Harley Davidson. And then Jimmy Hart put the word in for him. But I think he drew a check without having to take bumps for years and years and years from the company, rather than being one of the guys that just aged out after a couple of years in that spot. And his in-ring and presentation and gimmick didn't fit the Attitude Era.
Well, Jim, finally wrapping things up for the Hastel Toy Hillbilly figures. The Godwins from the Regium line, these are the brand new, I guess akin to the Mattel figures for wrestlers that are not in the Mattel line, of the Godwins, with golden horseshoe and hats that come off. Any thoughts on the Godwins?
What kind of hats don't come off?
Well, sometimes figures have hats that are attached to the head. They don't come off.
Well, fuck. We need to get a surgeon on this.
How much did you get to see of Tex Slazenger and Shanghai Pierce?
Not that much. I mean, I've seen video, but that was Henry and Phineas Godwin in WCW and some independents. But, both those get great guys. And especially Phineas, hilarious as shit. And I hate that Henry had the neck issue and had to quit so early. But, again, they got some notoriety because of the gimmick, but that gimmick, because of, was pushed because of Vince's predilections and was not gonna last through the Attitude Era, or really any modern era, without Vince pushing it, because it was just so. Talk about being behind the time. The Scufflin' Hillbillies were a big deal in the fucking late 50s, early 60s. And Vince just could never let it go.
Well, Jim, with that, we will let it go in terms of the classic figures. And of course, for Midnight Express figures, for Jim Cornette with Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton, and of course, Dennis Condrey, You can get those figures at Cornette's Collectibles, JimCornette.com.
Or just me by myself while they last. There's 3 left, I think.
You need a friend. I don't think they should just get you by yourself. You'll be an isolated figure.
Well, then put me up next to one of those sex toys that Kenny Omega used to have matches with, and you can sell us as a pair. But yes, JimCornette.com. The man in white, the pink and black, and the Santa Corny is still available. Everything else is sold out. And the Midnight Express figures are still available, especially that 4-pack at amazingly low prices. JimCornette.com.
All right, Jim. Well, before we wrap things up, why don't we once again pick up where we left off last time, a little bit about the Dallas Wrestling War of 1953. It goes into 1954, but we're specifically looking at May of 1953, the period around the burning of the Sportatorium.
Well, yes, and we were talking about this on the previous show that we did, and now you have uncovered some stuff, and not only that, and we may not get into all of this today because our friend Adam Smith sprang up again from East.
Where did spring come from?
I don't know. Spring is here. Adam Smith from East Yorkshire, England, sent us a bunch of history and documentation from research that he has done, but apparently this thing was even more heated than, no pun intended, than what we thought it was, the promotional war. And there is actually footage still in existence of the Sportatorium burning and some of the courtroom scene from when they sentenced the guy that did it, that you found when you did some of your research on this. It's amazing.
One of the crazy things about the burning of the Sportatorium footage, it's actually happening. It's that night, May 1st. After you see it burning for a while, they turn the camera. There's Ed McLemore, like in the night, watching the building burn. It's like, oh man, like that's a pretty strong image.
And it also, I guess it burned the whole building down. I was told when I was there that, oh yeah, that flat wall is where they built it part of the way back, but the whole building burned. And apparently there was also a problem with the city and the land that the Sportatorium was on at the time. And they had already given the Sportatorium word that they had to move the building or do something because the city was claiming ownership of a third of the land that the building sat on. Having said that, I don't know how that made any difference to what actually was rebuilt, because the only thing that was there was a big gravel parking lot. So I don't know. We still haven't found out how the city dispute was settled, and they built the building back, but it was not as large when they built it back as it was of the original building in 1936. So apparently the original place may have held 8,000 or more.
Well, Jim, going to the May 12th, 1953 program, and again, these were produced in advance of the week's show. These were mailed out to people. McLemore, Sarpolis back together. Doc versus NWA. Doc resigned NWA and TWA, joins McLemore. McLemore welcomes back his old partner. Those are so far just the headlines. Any early thoughts on the headlines here?
Well, yeah, that was the way the old newspapers used to do it. They would give you like 6 or 8 parts of the story in headline form before they'd get into it. But Doc Sarpolis had been for decades, even at this point, long-standing member of the wrestling scene in Texas, and was in later years close to Dory Funk Sr. and integral part of Amarillo wrestling. But Sarpolis had apparently been working with working with the opposition and Morris Siegel in the Houston office, and then saw that Ed McLemore maybe still was gonna win this thing, and turned right before the fire. He left the opposition and went back to McLemore.
Well, here is the article. Matchmaker Carl Doc Sarpolis, who once left medical school to become a professional wrestler and later left wrestling to become promoter Ed McLemore's Dallas matchmaker, is back with McLemore now! Exclamation point. Doc's first day of work with McLemore consisted mostly of reviewing past great things in Dallas wrestling history and promising each other greater days for Dallas wrestling fans under a promotion with no fears of any syndicate. Sarpolis' picture in the wrestling war was a perplexing one. At first, he thought his place was with the National Wrestling Alliance. With that early conclusion, he stayed with the Houston outfit referred to in the papers as the TWA. Just lately, April 28th to be exact, he severed that connection. Doc stated that his reasons were because of foul tactics employed and contemplated by McLemore's opposition. Whatever the outcome of his resignation, or the so-called wrestling war, that's in quotes, Doc was determined to have no more part of the opposition strategy. It was then that he went to McLemore and asked him if he wanted any help. McLemore was happy to rejoin with Sarpolis, and the combination that built Dallas into the top mat town of the nation was once again reunited. Doc stated that after seeing the vicious methods employed by the opposition, he decided that his side was with McLemore in the best interest of wrestling. Sarpolis cited the instance of the alliance blackballing any wrestler who worked with McLemore in opposition to any alliance promoter. Any wrestler who worked with McLemore was automatically blackballed by all other alliance promoters just for wrestling for an honest promoter who wouldn't take orders from the alliance. An alliance that is supposed to protect the wrestlers and the wrestling fans. I'll stop there for a moment. Any thoughts?
Well, I guess we've kind of confused some of the folks out there, and this is a long and contrived situation, but Morris Siegel, as we mentioned, was the promoter in Houston, and Houston was the city in Texas for wrestling, and the booking office worked out of Houston, and Dallas and McLemore had originally used that talent. But then there was heat, and Adams' research indicates that basically Siegel said, I had a heart attack in 1952, and while that was going on, McLemore and Doc Sarpolis tried to move the booking office from Houston to Dallas and cut him out. And when he recovered, and Siegel was the NWA member, that's where the instigation of the war started. And also there was problems with the Sportatorium, and McLemore had been doing a lot of television. And the guys in those days were pissed about being on television without getting paid extra, and also didn't want to be seen doing jobs by everybody in Texas when they did them at the house shows. So they wanted extra money.
It wasn't just Texas.
Well, yeah, that was an everywhere thing. But in this case, McLemore agreed to pay him extra and then stopped doing it. And so Siegel tried to bring in the NWA talent from Houston and run opposition, but McLemore was still outdrawing him in large part using odd names at best, but because he was the incumbent and had the Sportatorium, which was the building that everybody was used to going. So finally, when Sarpolis said, oh, he heard about, if not the specific threat, we're going to burn that place down, just what they were planning to do, and said, I don't want to be involved in this. I'm going back over to the other side. But it wasn't, days after Sarpolis went back that the Sportatorium burned down.
Well, back to the article here, the subheading, to beat NWA. However, Macklemore and Sarpolis intend to prove to the world and to the NWA that top-notch wrestlers are not afraid of the alliance. Already, even before Sarpolis' arrival, wrestlers such as George Bolus, Frankie and Paul Murdoch, Ellis Bashara, and Vic Holbrook were enlisting on Macklemore's side. Wrestlers such as Danny Savage, Danny McShane, Duke Kiamuka, and many others will break the barrier before long, it is predicted. Let's stop there for a second. He's predicting wrestlers are going to jump.
Well, he's probably already talked to some of them. If the other side's not doing well and the payoffs are down, then he say, hey, you can make more money working for me. If it doesn't materialize, it doesn't matter because people forget about it. And if it does, he can say, see, I told you so. So that was a thing that a lot of guys would do. If there was somebody on the other side that the fans wanted to see, then they would say, oh, don't worry about going to see them over there. They'll be here soon. Just keep coming to my matches.
Well, here it is in writing. The blackballing of such wrestlers was one of the tactics that Sarpolis objected to strenuously. Such tactics that put Macklemore's back to the wall have not been enough. What were the other methods that might force Macklemore out of the wrestling business? They were strong enough methods to force a man of Sarpolis' character to leave such organizations, but not strong enough to make him quit the fight. A new sportatorium will arise on the same site of the one burned down, and your favorite wrestlers will be competing there before too long. So let's stop there. Again, it's fascinating how it's playing out in public, in writing, in these programs every week. Because while this is going on, the rival promotion at Pappy Showland, which was a burlesque venue from the best I can gather, they were running weekly shows too, and they were doing programs
on the same night most of the time.
So you'd have like not just competing shows, but competing narratives in the programs. That's what makes this a little different than a lot of other wrestling wars. Any other thoughts, Jim?
Oh, I thought you were going to give me the competing narrative.
Oh, well, I have it for the next week, actually.
Well, there you go.
I have
because the narrative changes from week to week.
Well, I have here the programs we are going from right now are called Wrestling Dallas Style, and these are the ones for Ed Macklemore. So again, they're at the Live Stock Pavilion on May 19th, 1953. I won't do the articles in this because I just did those, but just trying to see.
And by the way, I'll say real quick, I mentioned the footage. That's the University of Texas. Mm-hmm. It has this archival footage. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
But yeah, they have, and there's no sound, but they have the scripts of the evening newscast that they obtained some kind of way that gives you what the broadcaster was saying over the top of the foot. But there's footage actually of the fire and of these reprobates that they hauled into court for the arson and the whole story behind that. It's amazing.
Let's skip around a little bit. If we go a few months later to July, they're competing head to head with the show at Pappy's, which has Mildred Burke on top. So with Jack Pfeffer, they bring in the fabulous Moolah. She's on the cover here. Slave Girl Moolah, world's champion, world's greatest girl wrestler, an African wildcat, world's strangest woman. It's just, the nicknames just went downhill from the start. But page 2, Jim,
and that's the thing also is that started, this was early in the ill will between Moolah and Mildred Burke because the Macklemore office was also using Elephant Boy, right?
That's
Tony
right.
Olivas, who
that's right.
Moolah had been the valet for and knew well, and then Moolah comes in to work for Macklemore as the NWA office, and Siegel is promoting Mildred Burke.
Well, page 2 has a photo of a young woman, dressed hillbilly style, I would almost say, barefoot, blowing a bubble with bubble gum.
Blowing a bubble gum?
Well, she's blowing a bubble, and it says Daisy May.
Daisy May!
Bubblegum champ. Mistress of the mule kick. Tomboy from the Ozarks, leading favorite of national mat fans everywhere. Do you know who this is?
That was Daisy May. The hillbillies worked for the girls too. There was also the Kentucky hillbilly girl, Elvira Snodgrass. And remember, she's the one that the Whatever Happened to Gorgeous George book from the early 70s, in their listing of big gates and crowds, said that there was a match in Louisville, Kentucky in 1941 between Mildred Burke and Elvira Snodgrass that drew 18,000 people. And that spread amongst wrestling historians for years until John Cosper, bless him, did the research and showed me how to do research in the newspaper files before it was online downtown at the library. They had 6 matches in 1941 at the Armory, the old Louisville Gardens, that drew 6,000 people apiece. But there was never a match in Louisville that drew 18,000 people. But point being, Elvira Snodgrass was the first hillbilly girl wrestler, and then Daisy May, for a while, I believe, if this is the same one or just, a ripoff or whatever, but was a big hillbilly girl in the 50s. Elvira Snodgrass ended up losing her arm in a car wreck and actually wrestled 1 or 2 matches with only one arm.
This is July 7th, 1953, a couple months after the Sportatorium burned down. Here's the card. Louis Martinez versus Johnny Shaw. Ray Perret versus Irish Jack Kennedy. One of Pfeffer's guys, Mr. America, Eastern World's Champion, defends the title against El Diablo from Parts Unknown. There's a picture of El Diablo. He looks like a generic mask guy. And the main event...
Would that Mr. America have been Eric Peterson?
It may be. It's certainly not a Stanley.
That was... Don Fargo was pitching when he got sideways with Jackie in the early 60s, was pitching to Jack Pfeffer that he and Eric Peterson wanted to go as a team called the Mr. Americas and see if he could get them booked, because Don Fargo was a bodybuilder in Pittsburgh in the late 40s when he got into business, and Eric Peterson was, I think, some kind of legitimate bodybuilding champion at some point.
Well, Jim, the main event for the World Championship, Slave Girl Moolah versus Darling Dagmar, TV star. For the world title and Diamond Belt, 2 out of 3 falls, 90-minute time limit, it looks like. Referee Leo Voss and Ray Carter, excuse me.
Darling Dagmar, in modern times, modern being the late 60s and through the 70s, little Darling Dagmar was the top midget girl, the babyface midget girl in Moolah's stable. And she was programmed all over the country with Diamond Lil, who was the heel girl. But there was a busty blonde, big breasted woman named Dagmar that was on early television as a star of a program called Broadway Open House. And she became like the first female TV star. She was just kind of like the Vanna White of the thing, the parsley on the plate. But so they concocted a girl wrestler that was named Darling Dagmar to make the people think that it was going to be this big titty blonde woman they'd seen on TV.
The most bootleg wrestler I've ever seen right here. Black Snake. It's just a guy with a mask on wearing a shirt with a snake on his shoulder. 8 feet of deadly snake. Wrestling's newest sensation. To return soon. And then to beat that, there's a masked woman on the back cover. Coming soon, the Red Tigress. The only masked girl wrestler who is challenging Moolah for a shot at the title. So, Jim, we'll end with this.
This was before that Moolah had any claim anywhere else on the World Women's title. 1953. That tournament was not in Baltimore, wasn't until 56, right?
I believe so.
Byers and Burke's match was in 1954, so this was completely an Outlaw Girls title, and Moolah had it already.
That was July 7th, 1953. We'll end with this. July 14th, 1953. The competitors, the opposition, Dallas Wrestling at Pappy Showland, where you see wrestlers of proven ability.
And I bet Pappy was happy.
There's a photo of Mildred Burke on the cover, and it says, "The lady is a real champion, and here are some facts. Mildred Burke is the only, and that's in caps, the only champion of the world in the girls' division of the game. This is a fact proven and attested to by the state of Texas and all the affiliated states, the National Wrestling Alliance, and the National Wrestling Association. We make this statement because we believe that the Dallas fans should always know the truth. About 6 weeks ago, we exploded a lot of extravagant claims and challenges which were being made on behalf of an imposter named Roy Dunn. Ray Gunkel offered to wrestle him, and Dunn has not been seen nor heard of in Dallas or the rest of Texas since."
And now, let me just say again, if you didn't hear our previous segment, Roy Dunn was a former hotshot shooter in the NCAA who was a really legitimate wrestler who was on Sam Muchnick's first show that he promoted in St. Louis in 1945. And Dunn was the guy that McLemore's office was claiming could beat Lou Thez because Dunn was and I think he went to the Olympics, as a matter of fact, now that I'm thinking about it, Dunn. And Ray Gunkel was the former NCAA wrestling champion in what the late 40s, 48, 49, later on would become part of the Georgia office and that whole thing with the Ann Gunkel, his wife, in the Georgia Wrestling War. But Gunkel was a shooter also that the NWA had, that they would respond when Dunn would challenge Thez. Well, you got to beat Gunkel first. And that kind of thing, because all of this was the promoters presenting the case to the fans. It wasn't about who's going to have the best matches or who does the best wrestling moves. The only way for one promotion in those days to beat the other one is for them to legitimately make the fans believe we got the real tough guys. Our wrestlers can beat their wrestlers. That was the defining point. The fans went to the promoter that they were used to and that they knew, and the building they were used to and they knew, to see the wrestlers that they believed were the toughest. And if you could embarrass the opposition by punking their guys out in some kind of way, it legitimately made a difference in business in those days. If I said that understandably.
I think so, and let's finish this program. Everything here again. This is all from the front cover of the program. Back to the Roy Dunn part, Jim. At that time, we asked you to remember the incident when further claims were made by the man who used to promote wrestling in Dallas, but is now running a sideshow featuring frauds and freaks. We asked you then to weigh carefully whatever you heard or read, and to believe the people who had given you good reason to have faith in them. Right now, the other promotion, at Freak Park, has reached a new low, but is headed even lower. You will hear many more false claims, see new belts dusted off each week, and champions, in quotes, crowned. What is more important? New efforts made to belittle your intelligence and pull the wool over your eyes. All we ask of you is to weigh the claims made, remember the phony Dunn incident, and to put your faith in the men who give you honest advertising and stand behind the claims they make. How's that for a rebuttal on the front page of this program?
And you know, the thing is, they did have, the NWA office had names. When you're talking about around the country, they had names, but McLemore had the building and the guys that he could get locally and from Pfeffer, that he could build, that it was still the home team kind of thing. And, it's hard to unseat the incumbent.
The livestock pavilions, or as I call it, Freak Park.
Yeah.
And that's Pfeffer. I mean, again, shut out of talent. It really, I hate to say it, but it really was a syndicate. It really was a situation where you're going to have a tough time getting talent. Who do you call? Jack Pfeffer.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to get, but you'll get a bunch of you'll just get a whole bunch of stuff.
You'll get something.
Hopefully something sticks. Yeah, hopefully something sticks. But we will continue our look at the Dallas wrestling war in the future. Any final thoughts here this week?
Well, again, I'm amazed that there is footage of the actual sportatorium burning. And it looked like, because it was built in 1936 and it was a wood and tin building at that point. And then they burned it down and built it back in just a few months. So the construction of that thing was never meant to be, a modern sports palace. It was always a goddamn glorified pole barn.
It was built up in the time it takes the Saudis to put up a stadium for the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Got it up quick.
But, the Big D Jamboree had to get back on the fucking stage.
I think one of the things we either read or one of the other things I saw, the Big D Jamboree didn't even miss a date. Like the Sportatorium burned down, they heard it like, we'll be over here at Freak Park.
Yeah.
Well, with that, Jim, we'll continue this next time with part 3. The drive-thru is closed. All right.
Uh-huh.
We'll be back next week with more fun and, of course, the Jim Cornette Experience in a few days. If there's anything happening, we'll talk about it on the Jim Cornette Experience and next week back here on the drive-thru. Go through
and if there's nothing happening, then we will make something happen.
Go through the archive, patreon.com/Cornette. $5 a month gets you access to the archive going back to 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. Don't forget about the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. It'll come right up. Full episodes, clips of the episodes, omnibus collections. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com. What's going on, Jim?
We just talked about it at JimCornette.com.
At JimCornette.com. The drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New. I'll slow down. Sorry, Jace.
The losses of Stephen P. New.
The law office. I can't talk at all now. Stephen P. New's out there, and he's there for you. 877-50-STEVE. Get even with Stephen.
He's out there in the yard. He's looking in the window. Mom, what do we do?
Surprised we haven't heard from him yet with all the comic book talk. 877-50-STEVE. Get even with Stephen. NewLawOffice.com. Listen to the wrestling news each and every day wherever you find your favorite podcasts or directly from thewrestlingnews.com. And that is it. We will see you on the Experience and next week back here on the drive-thru. For Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!